Chapter 1673. The great path was fighting. 1,000 sails were competing, and 100 barges were vying for the current. When faced with an undefeatable situation, one could choose to change their strategy and retreat. However, when both sides are on the same level, one would have to think carefully and find it difficult to make a decision. This kind of temperament was very inappropriate. This was not to say that it was bad to be cautious, but that one should not be overly cautious. Everything had to have a limit, and one had to grasp this limit well. Although this opponent was only a brand, because of the Tower of Title, he was actually not much different from the real body. This was especially so for some experts. Even a brand was like a living creature. This was especially true during battles. His body's instincts allowed him to know how to best defeat his opponent. Therefore, when faced with Fang Qingshan's deadly saber prison, he did not dodge. His black hair fluttered like a black waterfall dancing in the sky. His robes fluttered in the wind. His qi, blood, dermic powers, and spiritual sense were all unleashed. It was even more violent than the tides of the ocean. After the long spear landed, it was lifted up at lightning speed and struck down again. There was not much mystery, and it was not complicated either. However, its power was unparalleled. This was the great path of simplicity. This was using strength to suppress others and break all techniques. Clang, clang, clang. It was like the twilight of the gods. The bell of the end of the world was tolled again and again. Although the long spear was only an attack each time, it was too fast. At first glance, it seemed no different from the saber prison formed by Fang Qingshan's attack. The sky was filled with the shadows of the long spear. The murderous aura was enough to tear the void apart. In the blink of an eye, the long spear danced and struck hundreds of times. It formed a world of its own, clashing with the deadly saber prison. Once again, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Although Fang Qingshan's deadly saber prison was powerful, it was even more mysterious after it had been strengthened by a part of the death-sized divine power. However, the long spear technique of the other party was also indestructible. It was clumsy. When the two of them collided, they were evenly matched and were evenly matched. For a moment, the saber prison of death was being destroyed, and the spear was also trembling. Neither could do anything to the other. Both Fang Qingshan and his opponent had clearly expected such a situation where the thunder was loud, but the rain was small. They knew that the battle between the two of them would not end in just one or two moves. This was probably the so-called great minds think alike. The instant the deadly saber prison and the spear clashed, Fang Qingshan and his opponent attacked again without hesitation. Each of them took out their own unique skills and went all out. However, Fang Qingshan raised his arm and pushed the spear from afar. In the void, a seven-colored millstone took shape. The upper and lower wheels overlapped and rolled towards the spear like a millstone that could destroy the world. The surface was multicolored and grew endlessly, evolving all things in the world as it rotated clockwise. It was the five elements origin law that Fang Qingshan had once cultivated. The bottom was chaotic and returned to its origin. Earth, wind, water, and fire reappeared in the chaos of the world. In the end, it turned into black and white, rotating counterclockwise. In the middle was a whirlpool. It was like the origin, but also like the source of the end of the world. The two wheels rotated in opposite directions. The whole world was distorted. Anything that stood in the way of the millstone would be crushed into pieces by the torrent of history. Not space-time, not fate, not karma, not anything. Whoosh! The opponent seemed to have sensed that Fang Qingshan was not someone to be trifled with. He paused for a moment and waved the spear in his hand again. On the tip of the spear, there were cries of aggrieved souls, mountains of white bones, seas of broken soldiers, and a vast world of mortals. There was also the shadow of an ancient long river, which seemed to connect the two sides of the void. It seemed to want to sink the will of all living beings and corrupt their souls. Rumble. The battlefield in the Tower of Titles seemed to be overwhelmed. It kept shaking. Countless laws were collapsing. It seemed as if a large piece of the world had been bitten off by a heavenly dog. It was as pale as a piece of paper. Then it was destroyed. It was chaotic, as if the world had returned to the most primitive times. Fortunately, the Tower of Titles was a treasure of the upper grade of the 4 levels. If it had been a treasure that had just entered the 4 levels, the fight between Fang Qingshan and his opponent might not have been able to break the battlefield, but it would have definitely left some traces. People outside would have been able to detect it. 1 move, 2 moves, 3 moves. Fang Qingshan gave it his all in every single move, giving it his all. It was fortunate that it was him. His body had been modified to be able to contain the power of the Emperor level. Moreover, his magic power was rich and of high quality. Otherwise, if it had been someone else, the consumption and recovery of his magic power would not have been able to keep up, let alone the endurance of his body. This time, his opponent and Fang Qingshan had exchanged hundreds of moves, almost 1,000 moves. In the end, he was defeated by 1 move. The consequence of his defeat was death. Of course, the real reason for his opponent's defeat was that Fang Qingshan had treated his opponent as a whetstone. Fang Qingshan was improving at every moment. Even though his opponent had the support of the Tower of Titles, his height and upper limit would not change. Fortunately, this was the Tower of Titles, and death was not the end. Otherwise, if his opponent knew that he had become a stepping stone for Fang Qingshan and that he had not caused much harm to him, he would probably be so angry that he would vomit blood. Then again, compared to the previous purple title, this one was undoubtedly much more powerful. It was just like the difference between Chang Lu Shui and Zhuge Jin. Although they were at the same level, the difference between them was huge. And this was only the purple titles at the bottom of the 1,000. Just by looking at one spot, one would be able to tell the whole picture. Those who were ranked 500, 300, 150, 30, 10, 3, and even a number 1, how powerful would they be? Just thinking about it was enough to make one's heart race. However, although Fang Qingshan felt an unprecedented pressure, he was still full of fighting spirit. Only when there was pressure would there be motivation. The stronger the pressure, the greater the motivation. As long as he did not die, he would give it a try. Moreover, Fang Qingshan was not without confidence. After all, every time he fought with his opponent, he would not only move ahead of the others, but he would also not only defeat one opponent. Instead, every time he defeated an opponent, Fang Qingshan would gather an invincible aura and willpower. This was also the accumulation of power. As long as he continued to succeed, this power would become stronger and stronger. In the end, it would be able to conquer the world. Just like the amplification rule, it could directly increase Fang Qingshan's fighting strength, and it could also weaken and suppress his opponent's strength. Moreover, fighting with these opponents, although it was tiring, although he would get injured, although he would be in danger, every battle was a baptism for Fang Qingshan. However, every battle was like a baptism for Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan was like iron, and these battles were like raging flames, constantly forging him. It was helping him improve faster, and it was helping him digest the battle experience of the Emperor of Xingyi. Although it did not increase his cultivation, his fighting strength was improving every moment. Chapter 1674. Because of his foundation and rapid breakthroughs, he needed time to settle down. Fang Qingshan could have immediately digested the Xingyi Emperor's origin of Emperor's power and primordial spirit, and then improved by leaps and bounds. But he did not do so. Although he could not immediately digest the origin of Emperor's power and primordial spirit, he did not have to worry about his memories and experiences. However, experience was different from origin of Emperor's power. It was not something that he could digest on his own. Since it was battle experience, it could only be digested in battle. And right now, it was undoubtedly a good place to do so. Therefore, Fang Qingshan's combat power could skyrocket. In the past, he could only use 70% of his strength. Now, he could even use 120% of his strength, much less 100%. Therefore, even though his cultivation level did not increase, his combat power increased rapidly. Of course, more importantly, Fang Qingshan still had trump cards up his sleeves. Right now, he was only using his own strength. He still had the All-Heaven chessboard, the Timeless Arc, and the one-breath Sanqing that he had yet to use. Especially when these treasures and secret techniques were used together, their power was unparalleled. One should know that when faced with the Qingyi Emperor's possession, Fang Qingshan was still able to put up a fight, let alone now. With the integration of the nomological laws and other treasures, the timeless arc had reached the peak of a mortal realm. Naturally, its combat power was incomparable to that of someone who had just entered the immortal realm. The All-Heaven chessboard was the same. After devouring the Qingyi Emperor's luck, the All-Heaven chessboard's power also increased. Any one of these items was enough to turn the situation around. If they were used together, the effect would be greater than 1 + 1 = 2. Of course, Fang Qingshan also knew that the world was vast and full of extraordinary things. He had all sorts of powerful treasures, but so did others. However, there were probably not many that could compare to the All-Heaven chessboard and the timeless Arkansas. Therefore, even though Fang Qingshan wasn't certain that he would be the champion, he believed that if he gave it his all, he wouldn't be too far behind. As for whether or not he would succeed in the end, it all depended on man's planning and God's will. No matter what, he would continue to fight and see. If he could fight until the end, he would naturally succeed. Even if he failed, he would have no regrets. Although Fang Qingshan had started the battle for first place, he still had to fight for it. However, this did not mean that Fang Qingshan needed to fight every single purple title holder. Although the purple title would be randomly matched, it was not a good choice. If one was lucky, they would be matched with the weakest purple titles. If one was unlucky, they would naturally be matched with the stronger ones. At this moment, although it was still a random match, it would be fine as long as the next match was stronger than the previous one. This was because if everyone had to fight once, not only would it waste a lot of time, it would also be unfair to the challengers. Therefore, the next opponent appeared. This time, it was an opponent in the top 800. Compared to the previous opponent, this opponent's capability was more than double. However, Fang Qingshan was not afraid. All kinds of divine abilities and battle skills were unleashed from his hands one after another. For a moment, a myriad of strange phenomena appeared. Blade light and sword shadows, the ringing of a bell and a cauldron devouring food, the roar of a phantom, the roar of a dragon, the roar of a tiger, the swinging of an elephant's trunk like a heavenly whip, the spread of a peacock's tail clang, clang, clang. A loud clashing noise arose. Like the bell of annihilation, terrifying sound waves expanded, crushing white holes and causing chaos to explode. Of course, his opponent was also not easy to deal with. His attacks were fast and violent, surpassing the distance of time and space. His strength was limitless, able to break the source of laws and attack the enemy's weak spots. His movements were unpredictable and unconventional. Though this opponent was stronger than the previous one, Fang Qingshan was stronger and improved faster. At the beginning, Fang Qingshan and his opponent were evenly matched. There was no strategy to defend, and they entered a stalemate. Therefore, the previous opponent used close to 1,000 moves to finish off his opponent. This time, he only used around 800 moves to defeat his opponent. Without giving Fang Qingshan much time to breathe, the next opponent appeared. This time, it was someone in the top 500. His combat ability once again increased by leaps and bounds. However, Fang Qingshan didn't find it much more difficult to deal with than the previous opponents. As Xiao Chun waved his palm, stars lit up one after another like thousands of lights. Instantly, the night sky was filled with stars, like he was in the galaxy of the universe. The many stars were huge and resplendent, moving according to a profound trajectory. Unknowingly, one would be immersed in it, their minds feeling infinitely empty. At a certain moment, the stars suddenly fell like fireworks. They were very beautiful, but filled with extreme danger. Instantly, the world collapsed. Reincarnation, Tao, Querying Fist, Zhodian Star Formation. All sorts of magic skills, combat techniques, secret techniques, or magic skills transformed from spirit treasures unleashed their full might in Fang Qingshan's hands. Strength increased one's might, and one borrowed strength. Sometimes, when Xiao Qin's palm landed, 10,000 swords would greet him. All the swords seemed to be paying homage. This seemed to be similar to the death saber prison that Shao Chun executed earlier, able to suppress, restrict, and kill. Even if Shao Chun could not kill the enemy, he could still temporarily suppress them. However, it was not the same. In comparison, there was another move. When Shao Chun's palm landed, a sword light was like endless creation, constantly evolving into a world. One sword birth technique. Those who did not know would think that it was endless creation. However, when the power of creation reached the extreme, it might not be weaker than destruction. One sword to break all techniques and one sword birth technique were two different paths. They were even opposite. This was because one sword to break all techniques was a condensation of 10,000 swords, 100 rivers returning to the sea. It was a single action. It was a gathering of one point, and one sword birth technique was a dispersion. Condensation and dispersion were originally opposites. However, different paths led to the same goal. Hence, Fang Qingshan executed it. Be it the one sword to break all techniques of 10,000 swords or the one sword birth technique of endless creation, they both burst out with extreme power. The former compressed all kinds of sword Dao into one sword. When the sword struck out, it was like it bounced back from the bottom. It was extremely destructive and powerful, breaking all techniques. As for the latter, one sword birth technique, it was like Dao begets one begets two begets three begets all things. When one sword landed, it created a world. Endless laws, endless living beings, vast and boundless. Similarly, its power was unparalleled and it suppressed everything. One move, 2 moves, 10 moves, 100 moves. Not long after, the top 500 also fell. Next was an opponent from the top 300. Although this one was different from the previous one, to Fang Qingshan, there wasn't much of a difference. Therefore, he ended the battle in a shorter amount of time. The next opponent was someone from the top 100. The moment it appeared, it made Fang Qingshan feel like there was a sword on his back. The aura that exploded from his body was like an abyss. It was filled with the terrifying aura of lightning and volcanoes. Just a little bit of it leaked out, and it sent chills down one's spine. It was extremely terrifying. Chapter 1675. Generally speaking, the top 3 were a level, the top 10 were another level, the top 100, the top 500, and the top 1,000 were a level respectively, and it was the difference between the top 1,000 and the top 500. Sometimes, it was not as big as the difference between the top 500 and the top 100, let alone the difference between the top 10 and the top 3. Although it was a different level, there was definitely a qualitative change. But it was obvious that the quality of the top 100 was far higher than before. Therefore, as soon as the opponent appeared, it instantly gave Fang Qingshan unprecedented pressure. However, as soon as this person appeared, before the wind had even moved, a heavy pressure came rushing towards them. It was like the feeling Fang Qingshan felt when he climbed Mount Buzhou in the past. Every step was difficult. A pair of indifferent and large eyes didn't reveal any killing intent, but they seemed to be icy cold and violent as they stared at him. It was as if he was being stared at by the eye of heavenly punishment. His heart went cold, and an indescribable trembling surged out from the depths of his heart. A great disaster was coming. Defend immediately. Otherwise, there was no need to fight this battle. Fang Qingshan suddenly roared in his heart, and his body's instinctive reaction was instantly activated. Fang Qingshan felt that there was no problem. Moreover, it was precisely this kind of instinct that the cicada perceives before the golden wind moves that saved him. Otherwise, his path of invincibility would have come to an abrupt end. He made his move. Just as Fang Qingshan was vigilant and instinctively shouted in his heart to defend, the opponent made his move. He felt as if there was a blade on his back, and all the hair on his body stood up. As soon as he made his move, Fang Qingshan's heart felt like it was being squeezed hard, as if it was about to burst. Fast, very fast, very fast. It was so fast that Fang Qingshan's primordial spirit did not notice it. He only instinctively sensed a blurry light and shadow flashing by. There was not much movement, but it brought a fatal crisis to Fang Qingshan. Almost subconsciously, before his primordial spirit could react, his fighting instinct moved first. He controlled his supernatural power and performed his supernatural power. A palm fell, and a lotus flower bloomed. It was too late, but it happened very quickly. In the nick of time, a fiery red lotus blossomed under Fang Qingshan's feet in extreme glory. 1, 2, 3. Countless lotuses began to spread. However, before the sea of lotuses could form and was only the size of a lotus pond, the attack arrived. In an instant, the lotus flower withered like a short-lived epiphyllum. Originally, the defense of the lotus was endless. However, this attack directly tore apart the lotus pond. Fortunately, it didn't break the lotus treasure beneath Fang Qingshan's feet. The defense of the red karmic fire lotus did not disappoint Fang Qingshan. In an instant, he blocked the attack, but he didn't have the chance to breathe a sigh of relief. He did block it, but it was like hitting a cow through a mountain, the hidden force penetrating his body. Fang Qingshan's defense was not broken, but an extremely terrifying power penetrated through the defense and exploded within Fang Qingshan's body. For a moment, the lotus swayed from the impact, and Fang Qingshan was also forced to retreat. Fortunately, although Fang Qingshan only managed to summon the lotus in time to defend himself, his own defense was not low. Therefore, this attack was not a problem. However, he couldn't be too tough for long, and he couldn't be too soft for long. One attack was fine, but what about 2, 3, or countless attacks? As expected, there was no pause. Almost at the same time as the first attack landed, before Fang Qingshan could react, the second attack came. Then the third attack. It was too fast, too strong, too vicious. It was so fast that even Fang Qingshan couldn't react in time. He could only defend passively. It was so powerful that even with his protective supernatural power, he was barely able to hold on. The attack was vicious. There were 5 attacks in a row. Every attack was invincible, and every attack was aimed at the same spot. If it wasn't for the Red Lotus of Fire's unparalleled defense, Fang Qingshan's rich combat experience, powerful fighting abilities, endless spiritual energy, and extremely pure spiritual energy, he would have lost long ago when he first entered the Tower of Titles. Even so, Fang Qingshan's situation was not optimistic. If he didn't change anything and had to change the situation quickly, then this would be his limit. Otherwise, if he didn't take a step back and kept retreating, this would be his limit. Top 100 was still top 100. The difference between Chang Lushui and Zhuge Jin, Chang Lushui and Daoist Yi, and even the Emperor of Xingyi who took over Fang Qingshan's body. Although Fang Qingshan defended time and time again, he was pushed back again and again. His body was constantly attacked and injured, causing him to spit out blood. He didn't even have the time to use his second defensive supernatural power. This was the power of the first move. Even if the gap between the two of them wasn't huge, even if the opponent had a trump card. If the opponent attacked first, he would lose before he could unleash his full strength or use his trump card. If he was attacked first, he wouldn't have the time to display his strength, nor would he have the time to display his trump cards. It was very easy for him to be defeated because of this. The sixth strike. This attack was even faster than before. Even though Fang Qingshan managed to block it, it was still extremely powerful, and he coughed up blood again. Damn it, I can't do it anymore. Looks like I can't just rely on myself. Although Fang Qingshan was a little disappointed, he could still accept it. After all, almost all the top 100 purple title divine emperors in the Tidal Tower had become venerable sovereigns. Even among venerable sovereigns, they were not at the bottom. Back then, when these people were still at the divine emperor realm, which one of them didn't almost become invincible? Wasn't he invincible as long as a venerable sovereign didn't show up? Talent, comprehension, fortuitous encounters, spirit treasures, combat power, he did not lack any of them. He would never be weaker than anyone in his life. Compared to these people, even though Fang Qingshan wasn't too bad and he had the support of the Xingyi Emperor's battle experience, he was still a formidable opponent. But in the end, it was impossible to completely digest it in one go. Moreover, although they were all peak divine emperors, Fang Qingshan had just entered the peak divine emperor realm, while these people had been in this realm for many years. Everything had been honed to the extreme. The fact that he could fight his way into the top 100 was already impressive enough. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan still had a trump card. Explode! Fang Qingshan shouted. As his opponent attacked, Fang Qingshan didn't wait this time. He directly exploded the red lotus of hellfire. Boom! The volcano erupted, the earth fire raged, the heavenly fire set the prairie ablaze, the sun exploded. It was an indescribable feeling. Boundless hellfire burst out in an instant, but it was soon torn apart by his opponent again. However, this eruption had clearly given Fang Qingshan a chance to survive, or rather, a chance to catch his breath. One Qi transformation into Sanqing. The three pure ones had become one. Without the slightest delay, Fang Qingshan unleashed this secret technique within a millionth of a second, or perhaps even less. This time, Fang Qingshan didn't exert any defensive divine skills, such as the Great Void Armor, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, the Bell of Chaos, because he knew that if he didn't improve himself, it would be futile no matter how many defenses he exerted. Chapter 1676. Compared to his opponent, Fang Qingshan's magic power, physique, and Yuan Shen's quality were not inferior. What he lacked was experience and reaction speed. He was still digesting the experience of the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor, and it was not something that could be perfectly integrated in a short time. Reaction speed was actually the sensitivity of the Yuan Shen, the rhythm of the body, and even the instinctive reaction. But these improvements could not be achieved in a short time. Therefore, the only way was to improve his cultivation base. When one's cultivation base was high, everything else would rise. Otherwise, why would cultivation base be the foundation? It was like the inner strength of the martial artists. When one's inner strength was high, even common martial arts like the Taizu's long fist and the five tigers breaking the gate saber could exert the power of a unique skill. Therefore, Fang Qingshan directly improved his cultivation base instead of continuing to use defensive divine skills. Firstly, these divine skills might not be as powerful as the Red Lotus of Hellfire. Even the Red Lotus of Hellfire could not defend against it, not to mention treasures like the Great Void Divine Armor. Secondly, although Fang Qingshan's self-detonation of the Red Lotus of Hellfire had bought him some time, the time was short, and he could only summon one divine skill. If he could add a few more divine skills, it would be fine. Unfortunately, there was only one. Moreover, this self-detonation of the divine skill had bought him some time. If he wanted to use the same trick again, the effect would not be as good. Thus, 2-minute ripples appeared beside Fang Qingshan. It was as if two stones had fallen into a deep pond, causing ripples to spread out. The two ripples grew more and more rapid. In the end, there seemed to be two specks of spiritual light slowly rising from within the ripples. Then, two figures, one black and one white, appeared out of thin air. However, these two figures did not last long. In a flash, they stepped out and walked into Fang Qingshan's body. There was no barrier at all, and they blended into Fang Qingshan's body like water and milk. In an instant, Fang Qingshan's cultivation base rose like a volcanic eruption. At this moment, his robe, which had been quietly motionless, fluttered in the air even though there was no wind. An indescribable power spread, shaking the heavens and earth. In an instant, he had advanced from the early peak divine emperor to the late peak divine emperor and almost reached the half-step sovereign realm. Although he didn't even advance by a small realm, Fang Qingshan could completely feel the leap in quality. Unfortunately, before he could properly feel the power in his body, his opponent's attack came again. However, this time, it was completely different. Failure. Of course, failure was not referring to Fang Qingshan, but the fact that his opponent's attack had lost its effect. Now that Fang Qingshan's cultivation base had improved, the power of his Dharma spells and mystic arts, as well as the instinctive reaction of his soul, had naturally improved. untainted by yin and yang, untainted by the five elements. The past can be changed, but the present cannot be imprisoned. The future is destined. For a millionth of a second, as Fang Qingshan performed his magic art, the entire space rang with a loud and clear sound, so loud that even the deaf could hear. A chessboard formed under Fang Qingshan's feet. It was an inescapable net, the chessboard's veins, and the stars were scattered all over the place. They were the chess pieces of the heavens. The chessboard was the boundless void, the chess pieces were the heavens, and the chessboard was the boundless darkness and the great way. Fang Qingshan wandered around with a pair of wings on his back. He was free and unrestrained. One step, one star, one chess piece. He moved freely up and down, and there was no limit to the past and present. Boundless heavens. The combination of the boundless heavens chessboard and the freedom wings. Although it was a movement skill, it was also a defensive skill. After all, no matter how powerful an attack was, if it couldn't land, it would naturally be defended. With this divine skill, Fang Qingshan could attack and defend at will. With a buffer, Fang Qingshan quickly adapted to his opponent's attack. For Fang Qingshan, as long as it didn't kill him with one slap, he could have a chance to take a breather and turn the tables. After all, his foundation was enough for him to drag the opponent to death. The foundation of a Xingyi Great Emperor was enough for him to digest and improve at every moment. Death Scythe, Permitha Bridge, Passing Water Lamp, Chaos Demonic Horn, Chaos Bell, Thunderflag. Fang Qingshan unleashed a series of divine abilities created by the eternal divine furnace unit. Bolstered by the power of the eternal heavenly vessel, Fang Qingshan instantly turned the situation around. At the start, he had been on the receiving end of a beating, unable to resist at all. But now he was fighting on equal footing. Just like before, if the opponent couldn't take down Fang Qingshan with the momentum of the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, he would turn the battle from strategic defense to a strategic stalemate. Then, the final strategic attack wouldn't be far away. Sure enough, 1 move, 2 moves, 10 moves, 100 moves. Fang Qingshan used about 500 moves and finally killed his opponent with difficulty. Huff, huff, huff. This time, although Fang Qingshan had defeated his opponent, he was also exhausted. He was panting heavily, and he had to heal his wounds nonstop. After all, the battle wasn't over yet. Sure enough, it didn't take long for his opponent to appear again. Rank 50, Rank 30, Rank 10, Rank 5, Rank 3, Rank 1. Fang Qingshan's battles were getting more and more difficult. Previously, every time he defeated an opponent, the room for improvement was enough for him to easily deal with the next opponent. But now, although he was still improving, the room for improvement was obviously not enough to support him to the final victory. Therefore, in every battle, he went all out and unleashed all kinds of explosive power, almost squeezing out the last drop of his blood. Exhaustion, endless exhaustion. Whether it was physically or mentally, it was the same. But his opponents were all at their peak. Under such circumstances, Fang Qingshan's progress naturally became more and more difficult. Fortunately, he had the timeless arc and all kinds of treasures. His body was also very strong, so he could recover quickly. Otherwise, just taking turns to fight was enough to keep Fang Qingshan at the door. Relying on the one-turning Sanqing, Fang Qingshan entered the top 100. Relying on the all-heaven chessboard, Fang Qingshan defeated opponents in the top 50. Relying on the timeless arc, Fang Qingshan defeated opponents in the top 30 and the top 10. Facing the top 5 and the top 3, Fang Qingshan had to combine the one-turning Sanqing, the all-heaven chessboard, and the timeless Arkansas. At this time, Fang Qingshan was almost at his limit. Although he was mentally exhausted, he was also very excited, because there was only one last opponent left. As long as he defeated him, Fang Qingshan's goal would be achieved. He would be the champion and take first place. At this moment, Fang Qingshan's eyes were like the cracking of the sun, bursting with endless light and fire. Just then, in the tidal tower, there was a sudden change. Rumble. Boundless demonic energy and boundless Buddhist light burst out at the same time. The two powers, which were supposed to be incompatible like fire and water, merged perfectly like Tai Chi. Chapter 1677. What's this? Fang Qingshan was shocked to see this. On one side, there were demonic flames, killing and unimaginably evil, lawless, murderous, and destructive. It was as if an ancient demon god had reappeared in the world. On the other side, there were sounds of Sanskrit, evening drums, and morning bells. Golden lights shone in all directions. Compassion, love, and bliss. It was as if a Buddha had descended to the world. Two opposing forces like water and fire, yin and yang, black and white, and day and night, were perfectly harmonized. One could become a Buddha, and another could become a demon. The Buddha and the demon were one. At the same time, a figure appeared in the Buddha and the demon. A white-robed figure stood with his hands behind his back. His face was like jade, and he looked like a scholar. He exuded a sense of compassion. However, between his eyebrows, 3 vertical eyes were open, and they were filled with extreme evil. Two-faced divine emperor. Fang Qingshan uttered a name slowly. This person was currently ranked first on the divine emperor stele, and he was also an invincible divine emperor. The reason why Fang Qingshan reacted so late was that he was not familiar with this person. This was because this person had become a taboo existence in a myriad of worlds. This taboo was partly because of his background and identity, and partly because of his strength. This person was really a legendary figure. He was born in the Supreme Emperor Dynasty, which ranked 3rd on the Supreme Strength list. Later, he became a disciple of a Buddhist sect and cultivated Buddhist Dharma. He was also a Buddha. He was highly praised and trained by many Buddhist venerable emperors, and even Amateus Buddha had taught him personally. If nothing went wrong, this person would definitely become a mainstay of the Buddhist sect, Amateus Buddha. Unfortunately, this person was very ambitious. He knew that if he cultivated step by step, he could also become a peak venerable emperor and become an existence no weaker than Amateus Buddha. But it would be extremely difficult to surpass him and venerable emperors. Therefore, he had been planning from the beginning. Although his original body became a Buddhist sect, he let his clone become a disciple of the primitive demon sect. Of course, if it was an ordinary clone divine ability, it would not be able to fool the people of the primitive demon sect. But he was born in the Supreme Emperor Dynasty, which ranked 3rd on the Supreme Strength list. Furthermore, he himself was a natural-born divine, the template of a main character. Heaven and earth would always be on his side. Just like that, he cultivated the peerless Emperor Dynasty's direct descendants cultivation techniques and divine arts while cultivating Buddhism and Devil Tao. If it had been anyone else, they would have probably failed. After all, regardless of whether it was the Supreme Imperial Court, the Buddhist sect, or the Devil sect, their legacies were extremely profound. It would be difficult to study one of them, let alone 3. Those who were slightly worse would probably go berserk and explode to death. After all, be it the inheritance of the Emperor's Path or the Buddhist sect, the inheritance of the demon sect was extremely domineering and exclusive. However, the two-faced celestial emperor had relied on his own comprehension, opportunities, and innate talents to merge the Buddha and the demon into one with his Emperor Tao divine ability. Paper can't wrap up fire. In particular, the higher one's strength was, the harder it was to conceal it. This was because one's every move could attract the attention of countless people. After the two-faced Buddha's strength had reached the pinnacle, it finally erupted. Because of the irreconcilable relationship between the Buddha and the devil, how could he not deal with the heretic two-faced divine emperor? Even the Supreme Dynasty he was born in was no exception. Facing the accusations of the Buddha clan and the Devil clan, the Supreme Imperial Court couldn't go too far. In the end, the 3 parties discussed and decided that if the venerable sovereigns didn't intervene, they would let the two-faced divine emperor fend for themselves. Although the venerable sovereigns wouldn't intervene, the pressure and threat of the Buddha clan and the demon clan's divine emperor was unimaginable. Even now, Fang Qingshan wasn't sure if he would be able to make it through. However, the two deity emperors managed to survive the attack. Not only did he survive, but he also perfectly merged the demon and Buddha clan's divine abilities with the help of the demon clan and the demon clan, and took the opportunity to break through to the venerable sovereign realm. He bitterly regretted working for others every year. The Buddha clan and the demon clan were greatly humiliated this time, but because of the supreme imperial court, they could only swallow their pride. Moreover, as the two-faced divine emperor broke through to the venerable sovereign realm, the situation became even more uncontrollable. Breaking through to the peak of the venerable sovereign realm wasn't as easy as drinking water, but it wasn't difficult either. Moreover, it was said that after he broke through to the venerable sovereign realm, he even fought the Saint Buddha clan and the original demon clan to take revenge for being hunted by the Buddha clan and the demon clan. He fought with the infinite Saint Buddha and the primordial heavenly demon. No one knew who won, but he escaped unscathed. Therefore, this matter was related to three great forces and the cultivation of the two-faced divine emperor, so it naturally became a taboo. To Fang Qingshan's surprise, the two-faced divine emperor didn't take action immediately after he appeared. Instead, he looked Fang Qingshan up and down. He was a little surprised, a little emotional, and also a little happy. After so many years, someone finally walks on the road of invincibility, and he has reached the last step. It was lonely at the top, and being invincible was the loneliest. Therefore, the two-faced divine emperor was also happy about the appearance of Fang Qingshan. After all, Fang Qingshan had reached this step. Even if he failed in the end, it was only a matter of time before he became a venerable sovereign or even a top-level venerable sovereign. At that time, he would have a peer, a Taoist. He was not alone. I'm Fang Qingshan. Greetings, two-faced divine emperor. Fang Qingshan's face was a little solemn, but he was also a little excited as he bowed to him. After they chatted for a while, the two-faced divine emperor said, "You can make your move. Be careful." Fang Qingshan nodded and didn't refuse. The two-faced divine emperor had been famous for a long time, and he was under a lot of pressure, so he didn't mind taking advantage of him. "Ho!" Fang Qingshan snorted. He used the One Qi Sanqing, the all-heaven chessboard, the reincarnation mirror, and the timeless arc at this moment. His cultivation rose again and again. Although he didn't break through to venerable sovereign, he was no different from an ordinary venerable sovereign. Not bad, not bad. Seeing this, the two-faced divine emperor's eyes also lit up, and he nodded to himself. He was excited to see his prey. Amplification law, help. However, although he was excited to see his prey, it was obvious that this level was just so for the two-faced divine emperor. Fang Qingshan, of course, knew that if this was all, he couldn't defeat the two-faced divine emperor at all. The result of the fight would be no better than a cat playing with a mouse, let alone winning. So, he used another trump card, the amplification law. Boom! This thing was useful to the Xingyi martial emperor in the past. Now, it was integrated into the timeless arc, which was activated by Fang Qingshan. Of course, it didn't disappoint him. Venerable Sovereign. Yes, at this moment, Fang Qingshan's cultivation completely broke through the shackles, and he became a real venerable sovereign, not just a venerable sovereign. Great, great. Seeing this, the two-faced divine emperor said great 3 times, and his aura also broke out in an instant, which was no weaker than that of Fang Qingshan. Chapter 1678. For the two-faced divine emperor, there was always the first among the divine emperors before him, and after him, he would be the first. Ever since he became the first, he hadn't fought again. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that none of them were worth fighting, and the title tower wouldn't give him a match. After all, even if Fang Qingshan didn't use many precious treasures, an ordinary purple title expert couldn't even survive one attack from him, not to mention the two-faced divine emperor. It was lonely at the top, and being invincible was the loneliest. Therefore, When the two-faced divine emperor saw that Fang Qingshan was able to fight his way to him, he was quite happy, so he didn't attack him immediately. He saw the all-heaven chessboard, the timeless arc, the One Qi Sanqing, the reincarnation mirror, and Fang Qingshan's cultivation was comparable to that of a venerable emperor. The two-faced divine emperor didn't try to stop him, but he was even more excited. However, this kind of joy was only because Fang Qingshan was a worthy opponent. He was not like the others, who would die as soon as they touched or brushed past each other. However, as Fang Qingshan used the rule of amplification, the two-faced divine emperor's expression changed. He felt threatened and pressured by Fang Qingshan, which was a feeling of being on par with Fang Qingshan. Since he became the first among the divine emperors, no other divine emperors had made him feel this way. Therefore, he was excited, and he went all out without hesitation, bursting out an amazing momentum. A venerable emperor, another venerable emperor. Among the divine emperors, there were quite a few who could rival a venerable emperor. Almost all of the top 100 people that Fang Qingshan had fought before had such strength. It was just a matter of who was more powerful. But there were very few who could break the shackles. In other words, if this wasn't the Tidal Tower, which was a challenge between divine emperors, no one would think that the two-faced divine emperor was a divine emperor, but a real venerable emperor. And compared to ordinary venerable emperors, he was even more powerful. Fang Qingshan had achieved this with the help of the rule of amplification that the Xingyi emperor had cut off, and the two-faced divine emperor had done the same. Sure enough, the world was big and full of wonders. No wonder he was a two-faced venerable sovereign who had mastered the skills of 3 schools and became an advanced existence. However, even though Fang Qingshan was under a lot of pressure, he wasn't afraid. After all, the current two-faced divine emperor was only a divine emperor, not a two-faced sovereign emperor. Moreover, heroes cherished heroes, and opponents respected their opponents. If he wasn't strong enough, how could he be in such a state? Obviously, he also felt the pressure, and it wasn't a small one. Therefore, even though Fang Qingshan didn't have a shred of confidence, he wasn't afraid. This was a pinnacle battle. Regardless of the final outcome, it was a great opportunity for Fang Qingshan. After all, opponents were hard to come by. Combat was the best teacher. If he could succeed in the end, it would naturally be the best. Even if he failed, it would be a worthwhile trip to have a hearty battle with the two-faced God Emperor. Kill. After adjusting his state and returning to his peak, Fang Qingshan made his move without any hesitation. This time, he first threw out the Zhoutian star formation, and then used the reincarnation Tao-seeking fist, Zhoutian star hand. The divine sense and the spirit treasure were even more powerful. Good timing. Almost at the same time as Fang Qingshan made his move, the two-faced divine emperor also made his move, and he used the Supreme Emperor Dynasty's direct lineage unique skill, the Boundless Emperor's Way fist. The Emperor's Way referred to both the way of the Supreme Emperor and the way of the Venerable Sovereign. As the fist fell, a strong aura arose from his body, and a dragon's roar echoed in the void. A real dragon leaped from the top of his head, tearing the sky and earth apart. 18 venerable sovereigns emerged behind him. Some were sitting in the throne room, some were expanding the territory, some were patrolling the world, some were educating people, and some were... These are the 18 most outstanding venerable sovereigns of the Supreme Emperor Dynasty. With this divine sense, the divine sense was extremely domineering and invincible. Rumble. Whether it was Fang Qingshan Zhoutian Star Divine Sense or the two-faced Divine Emperor's Boundless Emperor's Way Fist, they were both top-notch unique skills and ultimate treasures. When the two collided, even the Tower of Titles shook violently. Then, Fang Qingshan and the two-faced Divine Emperor were pushed back thousands of miles, as if they had been struck by lightning. However, the two of them did not care at all. Almost as soon as they steadied themselves, they rushed forward again. Reincarnation Tao-seeking fist, cleaving heaven and earth with one axe. This time, Fang Qingshan used the cleaving heaven and earth with Pan Gu's cleaving heaven and earth. Of course, although the foundation was the same, the inside was completely different. What he borrowed was, of course, the Bell of Chaos. Although this ultimate treasure was not an axe, it was 1/3 of the Cleaving Heaven axe. After the upgrade of the Timeless Arc, it was not weaker than the Cleaving Heaven axe at all. The Divine Bell turned into an axe, and as it struck down, a domineering Cleaving Heaven axe was circulated. Under the axe, the battlefield created by the Tower of Titles seemed to be unable to bear the heavy burden, and cracking sounds could be heard. The void was torn apart, and chaotic energy was tumbling. Wherever the axe light passed, it left behind a condensed great path. All laws did not exist, and all Daos did not exist. This feeling was similar to the last days' great divine sense of the eye of the last days. At this moment, the two-faced divine emperor suddenly changed. From an overbearing and domineering emperor, he turned into a benevolent Buddha. He performed a seal with both hands. The whole sky was filled with Sanskrit chanting, and the figures of countless Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and Bhikkhus were floating around the giant hand. It was as if the air was filled with the faint fragrance of Buddhist lotuses. The merit seal of 10,000 Buddha's pilgrimage. When the two-faced divine emperor had joined the Buddhist League, he had been instructed by the immeasurable divine Buddha. After observing the myriad Buddha's pilgrimage painting, a supreme treasure of the Buddhist League, he had created this ultimate divine sense. In fact, it was somewhat similar to Feng Qingshan's Tao-seeking reincarnation fist, which he had created by observing the eternal divine furnace unit of the timeless Arkansas. The difference was that, because he had betrayed the Buddhist League, this divine sense could no longer enhance the power of the supreme treasure of the Buddhist League. Even so, this divine sense was still extremely powerful. Buzz! The two divine senses collided, and a muffled groan was heard. With the collision as the center, the aftermath of the collision spread out in all directions. Wherever it passed, the void was torn apart, and the chaos was split apart. Nothing could stand in its way, not even a little bit. Boom! This time, before Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor started fighting, the Tower of Titles took the lead. After a moment of dizziness, Feng Qingshan and Yi Zichen were pulled into an unfamiliar space by a powerful pulling force without any warning. The reason for this was that, strictly speaking, Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor were not divine emperors anymore. Moreover, their fight had created a great disturbance, and the divine emperor battlefield could not accommodate them. Therefore, the Tower of Titles took action and moved them to the sovereign battlefield. It was only in this place that they could fight freely. Chapter 1679. The sudden change had obviously caught Feng Qingshan and the two-faced deity emperors by surprise. They had sensed it before it happened, and tried to resist, but it was in vain, which made them even more vigilant. Arriving in an unfamiliar space, the two of them were even more surprised, so much so that they forgot to fight and looked around instead. Fortunately, the tidal tower soon gave them an explanation, and Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor let out sighs of relief. After all, they had never seen such a change before. Feng Qingshan was different from the two-faced divine emperor, who was only a brand, while Feng Qingshan had entered with his real body. Even if he was fatally injured in the tidal tower, he would be fine in the outside world. But who knew if there would be any accidents? After knowing that the tidal tower had caused such a mess because of the destructive power of their fight, Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor let go of their scruples and started fighting again. Both of them were doing their best to attack. They attacked, defended, and even used dirty tricks. They used all kinds of methods. Sometimes it was Feng Qingshan who attacked, and the two-faced divine emperor who defended. Sometimes it was the two-faced divine emperor who attacked, and Feng Qingshan dodged. Exchanging blows back and forth was very exciting. Reincarnation, Tao-seeking fist, bridge of the other shore. With one move, the long bridge rippled, and the flowers bloomed on the other shore. Reincarnation, Tao-seeking fist, passing water lamp. The dead were like men, not forsaking day and night, glistening like water. Reincarnation, Tao-seeking fist, chaotic demonic horn. The sails fluttered, and the timeless ark flew across the sky with its hideous tentacles. Reincarnation, Tao-seeking fist, reincarnation mirror. Reincarnation, samsara, black and white alternated. Reincarnation, Tao-seeking fist, all heaven chessboard. The chessboard carried the void, and the chess pieces evolved into worlds. All of a sudden, they all exploded, and heaven and earth fell into silence. Fang Qingshan had many methods, and the two-faced divine emperor was even more powerful. After all, the two-faced divine emperor was backed by three top forces, and Fang Qingshan was no match for him. Supreme Emperor Dynasty, map of rivers and mountains. With one move, the entire territory of the Supreme Emperor Dynasty slowly unfolded in front of him. There is no god, 10,000 nations come together. It was an unprecedentedly grand occasion. Regardless of whether it was the top sects, top imperial dynasties, or supreme clans, all of them came to pay their respects. Peerless imperial dynasty, emperor's golden mouth. Everything under the heavens belongs to the king, and everyone who commands the land belongs to the king. When the king opens his mouth, it means that his mouth contains the laws of heaven. When the golden mouth opens, it is the supreme will. Those who obey will prosper, and those who go against will perish. Buddhism, Bodhi blossom. When the flowers bloom, they see me, and I see everyone else. One Bodhi tree, 10,000 golden lotuses. Buddhism, glaring Vajra. With the heart of a bodhisattva, he used thunderous methods. The heavens and the earth are in balance. Good and evil, good and evil. Good and evil are compassionate. Evil has the glaring eyes of Vajra. Buddhism, wisdom sword. Taoism emphasized on one's root, while Buddhism emphasized on one's perception, which was also the root of wisdom. Therefore, once one was enlightened, one would immediately become a Buddha. With wisdom comes power, and supreme wisdom is unparalleled power. It was exactly the same as the intellectual sword that Fang Qingshan had recently obtained and integrated into the timeless Arkansas, Devil Sect, Bitter Sea, Devil Domain. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Turn back to the shore. The shore is the Buddha, and the sea of bitterness is the devil. Although the shore is broad, it is not as boundless as the sea of bitterness. Buddhism is supreme, but how can it be compared to the devil sect? Devil sect, devil destroys heaven and earth. All living beings suffer from the heavens and the earth. When the heavens and the earth are destroyed, all living beings no longer exist. Naturally, suffering also vanishes. Devil sect, 10,000 Buddhas become devils. One thought to become a Buddha, and one thought to become a devil. All living beings are equal, and Buddha and devil are one. The Buddha grows 1 foot, and the devil grows 10 feet. When the Buddha disappears, the devil rises. Good heavens, the two of them. You use the bridge of the nirvana realm, and I use the country and country. You use the passing water lamp, and I am already in the bitter sea devil domain. You use the reincarnation mirror, and I am already in 10,000 Buddhas become devils. The two of them fought very quickly. In a short period of time, they had exchanged more than 100 moves, and each move was infinitely powerful. They were all the kind that could suppress a purple titled Shun Wang. Boom! For a moment, in the void battlefield, the attacks that could destroy the heavens and the earth collided with each other. Loud noises rang out incessantly, and the shock waves spread out, shattering the space. However, it was fortunate that they had arrived at the Emperor-level battlefield. Otherwise, if they were still at the Emperor-level battlefield, the experts from all over the heavens and realms would have been alarmed. 1 move, 2 moves, 3 moves, 10 moves, 100 moves, 1 minute, 15 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours. It was unknown how much time had passed. It felt like a moment, but it felt like thousands of years had passed. Boom! It was another terrifying attack. Fang Qingshan and the two-faced Shan Wang did not continue to attack this time. The two of them stood opposite each other in the air, their long hair scattered and their clothes torn. No matter how one looked at it, They looked embarrassed. Fortunately, there were no outsiders here. Otherwise, they would be extremely shocked to see this scene. After all, Fang Qingshan's death was understandable. Although the great Emperor Xing he had fallen in his hands, it was all a coincidence of the right time, the right place, and the right people. The two-faced Shen Huang was the leader of 3 clans, and he was a supreme expert who had walked out of the battle between the Demon and Buddha clans. Even after becoming a venerable sovereign, he had personally gone to the ancestral lands of the Buddha and Demon clans and fought with the infinite sacred Buddha and the primordial heavenly demon. However, he had escaped unscathed and became a forbidden figure. However, at this moment, he looked so embarrassed. Perhaps he had never been so embarrassed before, except when he had been chased by the Buddha and Demon clans before he had become a venerable sovereign. Without comparison, there would be no harm, and it would be difficult to distinguish the strong from the weak. With the contrast of the two-faced Shen Huang, Fang Qingshan's performance was enough to make their eyes pop out. After all, at this stage, if nothing unexpected happened, Fang Qingshan would definitely become the next two-faced Shen Huang, the next forbidden figure. Compared to the two-faced Shen Huang, the appearance of Fang Qingshan was even more shocking. After all, the two-faced Shen Huang was backed by the Supreme Imperial Court, and he cultivated the supreme inheritance of the Buddha and Demon clans. What did Fang Qingshan have? Speaking of which, the two of them were evenly matched in their battle. Neither of them could do anything to the other. They stared at each other for a while, and then suddenly burst into laughter. Twisting his neck, his face was full of a carefree expression. I really didn't expect you to be able to fight with me to this stage. Amazing, amazing, the younger generation will surpass us in time. The two-faced Shen Huang looked at Fang Qingshan and sighed. How many years has it been since I had such a good fight? It feels good, really good. Shen Huang, you flatter me. After calming down, Fang Qingshan shook his head. He knew that there was still a big gap between him and the two-faced Shen Huang. There were 2 reasons. One was that the two-faced Shen Huang had become a venerable sovereign, and he had become a forbidden legend. Of course, Fang Qingshan was not worried about this, because he was also confident that he could reach this stage. The only problem was how long it would take. The second reason, which was also the most important, was that he had a trump card. As the leader of 3 clans, the two-faced Shen Huang had unparalleled luck. How could he not have a trump card? Chapter 1680. On the path of cultivation, apart from the most basic wealth, companions, techniques, and land, opportunities were also very important. If you don't have a fortuitous encounter, you can cultivate step by step. However, if you have a fortuitous encounter, you can soar to the sky. Furthermore, which powerhouse who could reach the peak didn't have a few heaven-defying opportunities? For example, Fang Qingshan's celestial chessboard and timeless Arkansas. Even those who believed in nothing but swords would at least need a good sword. Even the Fist Emperor, who only believed in his fists, didn't have opportunities when it came to body refinement. Also, therefore, Fang Qingshan didn't believe that the two-faced Divine Emperor didn't have great opportunities or trump cards. Moreover, even if he didn't have spirit treasures, he definitely had many secret techniques. After all, he was the master of 3 clans. Even if he didn't reach the end of his path in the Buddhist clan and the Demon clan, how could he lack secret techniques from the Supreme Imperial Court? However, from start to finish, Fang Qingshan had used the 3 pure ones, the eternal heavenly vessel, and the edict of amplification. All of them had been used, and they had been stacked on top of each other to produce an effect that was far greater than 2. However, the two-faced God Emperor had rarely used any of his trump cards. It wasn't because the two-faced Divine Emperor was hiding his trump cards, nor was it because he was careless, or unwilling to do so. One had to know that the outcome of this battle was directly related to the first place on the God Emperor title tablet. In other words, the number 1 God Emperor in all the worlds and the boundless void had existed since ancient times. Not only was it a title, but it was also beneficial. As long as one occupied the title, they would be able to enjoy the blessings from the Tao immortal throne, unlike other titles where one would no longer be able to enjoy the blessings once they made a breakthrough. For the two-faced Divine Emperor, the title of the first Divine Emperor was just SOSO. He might not be the first venerable emperor, but he was still a taboo existence. As for the blessing of Providence, it was just a drop in the bucket for him. But no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat, wasn't it? What if this was the straw that broke the camel's back? Fame and fortune were fame and fortune, but a battle was a battle. During a battle, they wouldn't allow themselves to go easy on their opponents or lose because of a mistake. That was an unforgivable mistake. Therefore, the real reason was that the two-faced Divine Emperor was restricted by the title tower. That's right. The reason why the two-faced Divine Emperor didn't use all his trump cards was because he was restricted by the title tower. It wasn't because the title tower was biased towards Feng Qingshan, so the two-faced Divine Emperor couldn't use his trump cards. The reason was that the two-faced Divine Emperor summoned by the title tower was not the real two-faced Divine Emperor who had used all of his trump cards. It was just the two-faced Divine Emperor he had met in the past. It made no difference from the two-faced Divine Emperor. After all, they were going to challenge the Tower of Titles and fight for the first place. How could they not go all out and use all their trump cards? However, they were from the Divine Emperor and Divine Tower. One had to know that even though he had yet to display all of his trump cards, if Feng Qingshan were to go all out, he would still be able to fight evenly with Feng Qingshan. Although he might not be able to do it easily, he would still be able to put up a good fight. And if from the Divine to from Feng Qingshan from, etc. Therefore, it was easy for him to compete for the first place on the Divine Emperor title steal. However, his success was due to Xiao He, and his failure was due to Xiao He. Back then, it was easy for him. But now, he was suffering the consequences of his own actions. Because he didn't go all out when he challenged for the first place, he didn't use his trump cards. Therefore, the title tower couldn't copy and summon the divine imprint out of thin air. It was really fate. If he hadn't used all his trump cards back then, as long as he had used one or two more, the outcome would have been decided long ago. It wouldn't be like this, where it felt like a battle of attrition was about to be completed, where no one could do anything to the other. Then again, the reason why Feng Qingshan and his opponent stopped was because they didn't want to continue fighting. It was because they had been fighting for a long time, and they were exhausted. After all, although the two-faced Divine Emperor didn't use his trump cards, the consumption of all kinds of top-notch divine skills and secret combat skills could consume more than half of their magic power if they were ordinary Divine Emperors. If they used several moves in a row, they would be exhausted, not to mention killing the enemy. It was the same for Feng Qingshan. Although the two of them had a lot of magic power, and their magic power recovery speed was fast, this was especially true since Feng Qingshan had the eternal heavenly vessel behind him, as well as the lightning-gathering pagoda and the origin pagoda. As a result, the density of his magic power and the speed at which he recovered his energy were slightly above that of the two god emperors. Even so, after fighting for such a long time, the two felt that they couldn't make ends meet and couldn't hold on any longer. Moreover, at this stage of the battle, although it was okay to fight a battle of attrition, no one could guarantee that they would have the last laugh. Even if Feng Qingshan seemed to have the upper hand, it was the same. Therefore, the two stopped. On one hand, they needed to catch their breath. On the other hand, they were ready for the final battle. At this stage of the battle, we can't continue fighting. Why don't we decide the winner with one move? The two-faced Divine Emperor took a breath and seemed to have returned to his peak state. He said to Feng Qingshan, "Okay." Feng Qingshan had no reason to refuse. If that's the case, be careful. The two-faced Divine Emperor's face turned serious as soon as he finished speaking. It was obvious that the move before him was his strongest trump card in the Tower Challenge. It was also his trump card for this desperate counterattack. A storm is coming. At this moment, a suffocating aura suddenly rose. The invisible pressure was enough to drive people crazy and kill them. An extremely powerful aura exploded. The great Tao in the sky seemed to be trembling. Boundless dark clouds gathered. It was the tribulation she. It was frighteningly dark, as if the great Tao was dripping black blood. It was so cold that it made people shiver. Whoosh, it started to rain heavily. It was black and bloody rain. It was so dark and red that it looked purple. It was so horrible that it seemed like the world was going to be destroyed. This feeling was comparable to the scene of the fall of the Xing, Great Emperor. At this moment, not only the people in the Tower of Titles, but the entire universe seemed to have sensed it. Obviously, this move was the same as the two-faced God Emperors, a forbidden move. Even the Tower of Titles, a treasure of upper level 4, couldn't resist it, and its aura leaked out. In the dark clouds that covered the sky and split the sun, there were 3 godlike figures floating within. Their terrifying shadows were faintly discernible in the clouds, and their faces could not be seen clearly. However, just looking at their backs, which seemed to be both real and illusory at the same time, was enough to make people tremble from the depths of their hearts, souls, and true spirits. Even the Great Path was no exception. Chapter 1681. What's going on? Why do I feel fear? Boundless fear? Has something big happened? The situation this time is even worse than the death of the Xing, Martial Emperor. Could it be that the change is even greater than the death of the Xing, Martial Emperor? Troubled times indeed. Fortunately, the aura disappeared as quickly as it had come. If the two-faced Divine Emperor had exerted this secret method outside the Tidal Tower, or if the two-faced Venerable Emperor had exerted this unique theurgy, the aura would have been thousands of times stronger than it was now. Fortunately, he had the Tidal Tower. Although he hadn't completely covered the aura, it had been weakened by 70% to 80%. However, it was still weakened by 70 to 80%. After it reacted, it was completely concealed. Even so, to ordinary people, including ordinary deity emperors, they still felt their hair stand on end. All of a sudden, the whole realm of heavens and the boundless void were in an uproar again. Most people's pupils dilated. They felt a kind of fear which came from the bottom of their hearts. This was the sorrow of the weak. Of course, some people knew what had happened. At least for those venerable emperors, they could tell the whole picture from one spot. Is this a forbidden, secret method? Good heavens! Who on earth is doing this? Interesting. Looks like the world of great battles is about to begin. Yes. First, the great emperor of Xing died. Now, the forbidden secret method broke out, but it seems to be covered by something. For other venerable emperors, although they knew it was the effect of the forbidden secret method because of the cover of the Tidal Tower, they still didn't know what had happened. But to one person, it couldn't be any clearer. That person was none other than the two-faced venerable emperor. In the depths of the boundless space and time, no one knew which corner of the boundless void was in the realm of heavens. Maybe it was no longer in this world. At a certain place, in a mysterious region of the sea, a young man was rowing a boat with a fishing rod in his hand. At first glance, this person seemed very ordinary, but upon closer inspection, one would discover that there was something extremely strange about him. Because just a moment ago, he seemed to be bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind. And in the next moment, one would sense a monstrous, demonic aura from him, filled with evil. And in the next moment, one would sense a supreme and incomparably tyrannical aura from him. This man was none other than two-faced Venerable Emperor. Even though he was separated by a great distance, he still sensed at the moment the forbidden secret technique broke out. He opened his eyes and looked back, as if he had instantly landed in the Tower of Titles. My path is not lonely. In the next moment, a look of interest appeared on his face, but he immediately shook his head. What a pity, there's still a gap. Then he stopped caring because in the next moment his fishing rod sank. Obviously, a prey had taken the bait. As he raised his arm, the next moment, the sea began to tumble and endless waves rose into the sky. Then, as if the sky and the earth had collapsed, a giant hole appeared. At this moment, it seemed as if the entire sea had been swallowed up. After that, a huge sea dragon was hoisted up from the hole. It was 100,000 feet long, and its four claws flickered with boundless sharpness. It was as if it could tear open a world with a casual swipe. Its scales were shining with a dim light, giving people a feeling that it was innately invincible, and its defense was unparalleled. Of course, the most important thing was the vertical eye between its eyebrows. Although it was not open, it still had earth-shattering power when it moved. Of course, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the aura emitted by this sea dragon. If Fang Qingshan had been here, he would have found that this dragon was not any weaker than the Xingyi Emperor. Apparently, in terms of cultivation, this dragon was at the upper-grade Venerable Emperor. However, it had been pulled out of the deep sea by two-faced Venerable Emperor, as if it was a fishing rod. Its terror was simply appalling. No wonder it was a taboo existence. Of course, although the sea dragon was pulled out, it did not give up struggling. Suddenly, the vertical eye between its eyebrows opened. Boundless light flashed, and people could vaguely see some mysterious runes of the Great Way, which were different from the heavens and realms, circulating around it. Then, a beam of dark blue divine light shot out of the pupil and turned into a beam of light. It shot straight at the two-faced divine emperors at an extremely fast speed. This attack seemed to be even more powerful than the cutting-way secret art that the Xingyi Emperor had used. It was simply invincible. However, it seemed as if the two-faced divine emperors did not feel any threat from this attack at all. Those who did not know what was going on would have thought that it was just a gentle breeze. The two-faced divine emperor's finger, which seemed to be able to kill an ordinary upper-level venerable emperor with one strike, was instantly destroyed. The two-faced divine emperor's finger pointed at the sea dragon's eyebrows without losing any momentum. A beam of blood-red light flashed. Such an existence, who could be regarded as a giant even in the heavens and realms, died just like that. In the tidal tower, as the two-faced divine emperor used the forbidden secret method, the two-faced divine emperor's expression changed again and again. Fang Qingshan's expression changed again and again. Pressure, boundless pressure, unprecedented pressure. This pressure was even greater than when he faced Chang Lushui in the Fallen Dragon secret realm, and when the Xingyi Emperor used the cutting-way secret art in the reincarnation Taoist field. At this moment, Fang Qingshan's whole body was trembling. Of course, this was not because of excitement or fear, but a natural reaction under pressure. However, this pressure was just the beginning. Faintly, a murmur came out of the two-faced divine emperor's mouth. He could not hear it clearly, and he could not understand what it was. However, an endless sense of sorrow welled up in his heart. This sorrow seemed to be even more intense than the heaven lament and earth cry when the Xingyi Emperor died. Rumble. At this moment, the three figures in the boundless black clouds of tribulation energy suddenly became a little clearer. At least, people could identify them now. A monk, a demon, and an emperor. This monk was not an ordinary monk, but a Buddha, a holy Buddha. This demon was not a clown, but a great demon, a primordial heavenly demon. This emperor was not an ordinary emperor either, but the ruler of a supreme dynasty, an imperial dynasty. Such a person was at the top of the pyramid in the heavens and realms. His words were the law of the world, and his casual action could make the entire boundless void tremble. However, at this moment, the three of them were actually pushing mountains and toppling jade pillars. With a loud bang, they fell to their knees, completely unprepared. This caught Fang Qingshan by surprise. His eyes widened like copper bells, and they almost fell out of their sockets. Horrifying, appalling, and boundless fear. At this moment, it was hard to describe how Fang Qingshan felt when he saw this scene. However, no matter who it was, when faced with such a scene, they would feel the same way. Chapter 1682. The Buddha was worshipped by others. It had always been others worshipping him. Since when did he kneel to others? Emperors were the same. They also sat high in the throne room, looked down on the world, and decided the rise and fall of the world with a single word. It had always been others worshipping him. Since when did he kneel to others? Demons were even more lawless. They viewed the people of the world as ants. They didn't even care about the great path of heaven and earth. They wanted to overthrow the world. Who was worthy of his worship? But at this moment, they all knelt. The Buddha, the demon, and the emperors all knelt. This scene seemed to be very satisfying. Didn't they always say that they would be willing to be cut into pieces to bring down the emperor? However, when he was faced with this scene, his state of mind was the complete opposite. At the very least, when Fang Qingshan faced this moment, what he felt was not joy, but fear. His brows suddenly furrowed, and he felt his eyelids twitching crazily. There was a feeling of trepidation in his body, as if some kind of terrifying disaster was sweeping towards him. 3 venerables, 3 kowtows. This was the forbidden secret technique of the two-faced venerables. It was also one of his trump cards. It was a supreme technique he created by combining the techniques of the Supreme Emperor Dynasty, the Buddhist sect, and the demon sect. That Buddha was not an ordinary Buddha. If there was a Buddhist here, they would definitely be able to feel that it came from the same source as the infinite Buddha. That demon was not an ordinary demon either. If there was a demon sect here, they would realize that it was the same as the primordial sky demon. That venerables was not from the Supreme Emperor Dynasty. After all, he was from the Supreme Emperor Dynasty. The Supreme Emperor Dynasty had never betrayed him. On the contrary, they had helped him a lot. If it wasn't for the Supreme Emperor Dynasty, the two-faced venerables would have been crushed by the Buddhist sect and the demon sect. There would be no chance for him to grow. Not to say that a drop of water should be repaid with a spring, but at the very least, he shouldn't repay evil with good or evil. Besides, he was from a Supreme Emperor Dynasty. If he used the Supreme Emperor Dynasty's venerables and used the secret technique, it would become the Fist of 7 Injuries. However, although he didn't use the Supreme Emperor Dynasty's venerables, he used another venerables from the Eternal Emperor Dynasty, which was no weaker than the Supreme Emperor Dynasty. The Peerless Emperor Dynasty and the Eternal Emperor Dynasty were both Emperor Dynasties. Although they weren't on the same level as the Buddhists and demons, they were more or less the same. Not only did this move involve 3 top forces, but it also involved 3 Supreme Emperor venerables. That was why it was called a forbidden secret technique. Even if others obtained this secret technique, they would not be able to cultivate it, nor would they dare to cultivate it. After all, making those 3 kneel would also damage the karmic luck of the 3 major powers. If anyone else tried to cultivate it, the infinite divine Buddha and the others would immediately sense it, let alone use it. Then, they would be killed with just a slight movement. Even a venerable emperor would not be an exception. They were true peak emperor venerables, so they wouldn't even take a peak emperor like the Xingyi emperor seriously. Didn't they see that the two-faced venerables hooked a high-level venerable emperor in that strange sea area? Didn't they destroy his soul and true spirit with just a point of their finger? After the 3 venerables performed the 3 kowtows, the 3 supreme emperor venerables, the infinite divine Buddha, the primordial heavenly demon, and the eternal emperor, who were from the Buddhist sect, the demon cult, and the eternal emperor, opened their eyes at the same time and snorted coldly. Then they traced the source of the 3 kowtows and instantly fixed their eyes on the tidal tower where Fang Qingshan was. Their faces darkened, but they did not attack. First, the 3 venerables didn't perform the 3 kowtows in the boundless void or in the universe, but in a virtual battlefield. Even if it was a forbidden secret technique, it would not be very effective. Second, they already knew about this forbidden secret technique. They had tried to deal with the two-faced venerables before, but they couldn't because of the venerables. Later, when the two-faced venerables became emperors, they couldn't attack Fang Qingshan again, so they had no choice but to accept it. Moreover, this was the tidal tower. If they destroyed the tidal tower, it would be equivalent to the Xingyi Great Emperor cutting off the Great Way, which would cause a backlash from the origin of the Great Way. Although they weren't afraid, it was better to avoid trouble. It would save them trouble. Of course, the last reason was that they knew someone was challenging the tidal tower. Someone who could force the two-faced divine emperor to perform the forbidden secret technique must have put a lot of pressure on him. At this moment, They were curious about the identity of this person. At the same time, they hoped that someone could break this secret technique and embarrass the two-faced venerables. The enemy of an enemy was not a friend, but at least a comrade on the same side. Moreover, if the enemy was unhappy and embarrassed, he would be happy. Fang Qingshan had no idea that his move had alerted the four forces and four supreme monarch venerables from the four great sections. If he knew this, even with his current cultivation and potential, he would be nervous. After all, if they attacked him, he would have no chance of surviving even if he used all his skills. After all, Fang Qingshan wasn't a two-faced venerables. He still had the supreme imperial dynasty behind him. However, because he didn't know, he could devote himself to the battle against the two-faced divine emperor. Sometimes, ignorance was a blessing. Apart from that, the only thing Fang Qingshan could do when facing the move of the two-faced venerables was to take a deep breath and fight with all his might. Fortunately, this was the tidal tower. Under normal circumstances, the injuries he suffered here would be healed after he got out. However, the three kowtows of the three venerables was different. Even though the tidal tower was isolated, the injuries he suffered would definitely be brought out. In this case, he might as well fight with all his might. As long as he didn't die, Fang Qingshan wouldn't care even if he suffered a Dao injury. After all, for others, a Dao injury meant the end of their great way. However, for Fang Qingshan, it was just an ordinary injury. As long as the timeless arc leveled up, everything would be fine. Rumble. At this moment, the power of the three venerables of the three kowtows of the three venerables exploded. Fear. Boundless fear. How could an ordinary person withstand the kowtows of a Buddha, a demon, and a venerables? It was just like when an ordinary person faced a big shot, they would be in awe and trepidation when they greeted them, let alone kowtowing. Then, the sky collapsed, and the Great Way was severed. It was like the end of the world. A terrifying aura came crashing down. Eternal Heart Lamp. As Fang Qingshan shouted, a ray of light suddenly appeared in the boundless dark clouds of calamity. The light wasn't dazzling, but it was magnificent. The lamp wasn't huge, but it was very mysterious. Boundless eternal Taoist rhymes circled around it. For a moment, one would think that it was the everlasting lotus descending to the heavens. With the picture of the great path of the green lotus as the foundation, the lotus lamp was made. With the eternal lotus seed as the wick, the eternal divine marrow as the lamp oil, and the heart as the lamp fire, the lamp was lit to suppress all internal and external demons. Chapter 1683. The Eternal Heart Lamp. Even though it was only a secret technique, and it might not be as powerful as the other techniques in the Tao Querying Fist, but at this moment, it had become Fang Qingshan's only hope of turning the tables. The reason for this was that this technique could communicate with a trace of the everlasting lotus. Even though it was only a trace, compared to the vastness and magnificence of the everlasting lotus, it was more than enough. Just like the famous three sky fairies who defeated the 12 golden immortals of the clan of enlightenment during the Battle of Desolation, they were completely vulnerable before the primeval Lord of Heaven. Even the saints were in such a state, not to mention the existences that far surpassed the venerable emperors. In order to achieve a one-hit kill, or in other words, Fang Qingshan wasn't sure if the Eternal Heart Lamp would be enough to fight back. Therefore, he had to give it his all. Therefore, when he performed this technique, he once again condensed the core of the timeless arc, the Eternal Lotus. Then he extracted all the eternal divine marrow from his body and turned it into lamp oil. As for his mind, it was completely on fire. He didn't feel like he wanted to win first place. He felt like he had an irreconcilable grudge against the two-faced Shenhuang. Only one of them could survive. It was either you die or I die. Of course, Fang Qingshan was relying on the fact that this was the Tower of Title. Outside, he wouldn't act so rashly. Here, even if he gave it his all, the Tower of Title might not be able to completely shield him from harm. But at least he wouldn't lose his life. Since that was the case, he had nothing to worry about. Outside, Fang Qingshan wouldn't do this. After all, If he lost, he would be fine as long as he was alive. If he wanted to leave, the two-faced Shen Huang wouldn't be able to stop him. If he lost his life for the sake of victory, then he would be a real fool. After all, where there's life, there's hope. The Battle of the Great Path wasn't about a short period of time. Putting all of this aside, because Fang Qingshan had unleashed his full power, he had unleashed it without any regard for his own life. He did not care about anything else, only for the final point, the ultimate sublimation. As a result, at this moment, the light of the eternal heart lamp had already reached an extreme. Compared to before at this moment, the eternal heart lamp that Fang Qingshan had unleashed was not just 1, 10, or even 100 times stronger. Of course, this kind of thing could only be done once. There was only one chance, and if he used it, he would lose his life. Therefore, other than a life and death struggle, he could not use it at all. Furthermore, apart from Fang Qingshan's desperate efforts, there was also a person who should be looked at in a new light after a 3-day absence. Things were different now. First of all, the timeless arc had leveled up. The eternal lotus seed was the core of the timeless Arkansas. The timeless arc had leveled up, so the eternal lotus seed had naturally benefited the most. If the timeless arc had been in its infancy before, then now, the timeless arc had reached its growth stage. Apart from the core eternal lotus seed, the red lotus of hellfire in the eternal divine furnace unit had also leveled up. It was no weaker than the green lotus of creation in the past, which had bloomed 36 times. Then, with the perfection of the reincarnation Tao-seeking punch, this skill and treasure had leveled up. Coupled with the fact that Fang Qingshan had once again seen the everlasting lotus up close, the picture of the great path of the green lotus had also improved. Following that, Fang Qingshan's cultivation had been improved, and the eternal divine marrow in his body had naturally increased and become purer. At this moment, Fang Qingshan was almost equivalent to having half an eternal Tao body, which was even better than the imperial venerable body. The lamp holder, the wick, and the lamp oil had all been improved. The power of the eternal heart lamp was naturally not the same as it was in the past. The power of the light naturally soared. In the light, one could vaguely see a supreme green lotus blooming, surrounded by all kinds of lotuses that were more than 36 times. Streams of purple gas gathered to form clouds, sacred and extraordinary. This time, Fang Qingshan did not attack, and the eternal heart lamp technique was not an offensive technique. Defense. This time, Fang Qingshan wanted to use the charm of the everlasting lotus to defend against the two-faced divine emperor's 3 venerables and 3 kowtows. Speaking of which, the two-faced divine emperor was also extremely bold, and his luck and talent were unparalleled. If he had not been so bold, how would he have dared to use the 3 supreme imperial venerables as a template to create the 3 venerables and 3 kowtows when he was still a divine emperor? And if it had not been for his unparalleled luck and talent, how would he have been able to create such a forbidden secret technique when he was still a divine emperor? Courage, luck, talent, and even a backer were all indispensable. In the blink of an eye, it seemed like a long time had passed, but from a moment the two-faced divine emperor used the forbidden secret technique, the 3 venerables and 3 kowtows, to when Fang Qingshan used the eternal heart lamp technique, and when the 2 secret techniques collided, everything happened in the blink of an eye. As far as the eye could see, the 3 supreme existences knelt before Fang Qingshan as if they were dragging out their lives for nothing. Good heavens, as the saying went, if one's virtue did not match one's position, there would be consequences. Even an old man would have his lifespan shortened by bowing to a young man, not to mention 3 supreme existences kowtowing to him. Naturally, he would have to face endless misfortune and disasters. Fortunately, there was a bright lamp hanging high above Fang Qingshan's head. Under the endless light, a peerless green lotus of the 81st grade was faintly discernible. It completely protected Fang Qingshan within it, and any misfortune and misfortune were isolated outside. No technique could touch it, and no technique could invade it. Great sounds were silent, and great elephants were silent. At this moment, there was no earth-shattering sound, and there was no irresistible aftermath that spread in all directions. There was also at this moment, there was only stillness. Everything was still. The world was still, the laws were still, the battlefield in the void was still, the three venerables were still, the green lotus was still, Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperors were still, and even the Tower of Tidal was still for a moment. Outside, time was passing bit by bit in the stillness. Maybe it was only a moment, or maybe thousands of years had passed. At some point, the stillness was broken, and everything came back to life. Then, whether it was the three venerables in front of the two-faced divine emperors or the green lotus above Feng Qingshan's head, they all vanished like illusions. It was as if nothing had happened. Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperors were once again in the same position as they were before the move that determined the universe. They each stood in a corner and looked at each other quietly. This time, the two did not laugh, but they had both gained something. Suddenly, a smile appeared on the two-faced deity emperor's face as he nodded at Feng Qingshan. "You are good, very good. Although you still have a long way to go, I'm looking forward to your growth. I believe the day we meet again will not be too far away." As soon as he finished speaking, the phantoms of the two-faced divine emperors instantly turned into specks of light and dissipated. "I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this." Feng Qingshan sighed and said that he didn't expect this twice. The first thing he didn't expect was that he really won the first place on the Tower of Tidal on the Divine Emperor's Steel. Although his first place seemed to be a bit exaggerated, and he only got lucky. After all, it was not the peak level of the two-faced divine emperors. Besides, when the two-faced divine emperors performed the three venerables and three kowtows, someone intervened. Otherwise, if he wanted to win, he would have to drag it out. Chapter 1684. If others knew that external forces could be used to fight in the Tidal Tower, they would be in an uproar. After all, this was the Tidal Tower, which was protected by the origin of the Great Ways. If that was true, the titles in the Tidal Tower would be in a mess, and other people would be able to imitate others. If that was the case, almost 99% of people would be eager to take action. For people like Feng Qingshan, the benefits of the title and the Tidal Tower were not as good as the experience gained from fighting with the corresponding opponents in the Tidal Tower. After all, normally speaking, how could there be so many experts in the outside world who would dare to fight with you so fearlessly? Even if there were, you would be afraid. After all, fighting in the outside world was different from fighting in the Tidal Tower. When fighting in the Tidal Tower, even if you used forbidden secret methods, the damage you would suffer would be greatly reduced. In the outside world, once you were hit, you would be killed. However, this was only true for people like Feng Qingshan, who had reached the peak of the same level. For most ordinary title holders, the title in the Tidal Tower was not the icing on the cake, but the timely help, which was of great significance. Otherwise, there would not be so many people scrambling for it. But then again, this was the truth. At the last moment of the fight between Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor, someone had intervened. In fact, this matter seemed a little unbelievable, but after thinking about it carefully, it was actually understandable. After all, the fight between Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor had startled the whole world. Since the fight between them could be transmitted out, some people could also transmit their own power into the Tidal Tower. Unfortunately, even though it seemed to be good news for the general public, it was just a reflection in the mirror, like the moon in the water. If someone really wanted to take advantage of the loophole in the Tidal Tower, he would find that it was all in vain. After all, you should see what was going on. Yes, the fluctuation in the Tidal Tower was transmitted out, but it was Feng Qingshan and the two-faced divine emperor who were fighting. Ordinary people couldn't compare with them. Would the fight between ordinary divine emperors be transferred to the emperor-level battlefield by the Tidal Tower? As for the people who interfered, they were even more impressive. They were the Eternal Emperor Dynasty, the Sage Buddha tribe, the Primitive Demon Cult, the Infinite Sage Buddha, the Eternal Emperor, and the Primordial Sky Demon. Yes, they were the ones who interfered, and only they could and had the ability to interfere. The infinite divine Buddha and the others had interfered because this matter involved them. Otherwise, it would not have been easy for them to interfere with the great way of the origin. The two-faced God Emperor had used the three venerables, three kowtows as a template, and it had also affected the fortunes of the eternal Emperor dynasty, the sacred Buddha race, and the primordial demon cult. They severed their connection, isolated their destiny, and stabilized their bodies and minds. Naturally, the power of the three kowtows of three venerables would be greatly reduced. In this way, not only could he protect himself, but he wouldn't provoke the Tower of Title first. Moreover, he wouldn't attack the Tower of Title. Moreover, he could make the two-faced Divine Emperor suffer losses. So why not? The two-faced Divine Emperor, or rather, the two-faced Venerable Sovereign, didn't care about it all. This was all they could do. It was impossible for them to do anything more. Otherwise, they would have joined forces to destroy this forbidden secret technique when it was first created. Why would they still be controlled by others now? However, no matter what, it was because they had restrained the three venerables, three kowtows of three kowtows that Fang Qingshan had been able to win so quickly. Otherwise, if the battle had dragged on, it would have been difficult to predict the final outcome. But no matter what, whether it was because the two-faced Divine Emperor wasn't in his peak condition, or because the Eternal Emperor and the others had interfered, the first place was still the first place. Its value wouldn't change. After all, if it had been someone else, they might not have been able to defeat the other party. Sometimes, luck was also a part of one's strength. This was unexpected. In the beginning, although he had said that he would strive for the first place, when he actually achieved it, he still felt like he was in a dream. After all, this was the first place on the Divine Emperor's Steel. Although it wasn't comparable to the first place on the Venerable Emperor's Steel, it had far surpassed the first place on the Primordial Chaos Steel and the Immortal Steel. If the Primordial Chaos Steel had a first place in every era and the Immortal Steel had a first place in several eras, then the first place on the Divine Emperor's Steel would only appear once every 10 eras. Since the two-faced Divine Emperor became the first Divine Emperor, there hadn't been a first place for dozens of eras. If it wasn't for the appearance of Fang Qingshan, this record would have been maintained and continued. Putting these aside, there was another unexpected reason. Although Fang Qingshan had said modestly that there would always be someone stronger than him, he had thought that with the timeless arc, the celestial chessboard, the amplification law, the one-breath Sanshing, and other magic treasures and secret techniques, he should be invincible among the divine emperors. However, he didn't expect that there would always be someone stronger than him. The celestial world was vast and full of extraordinary things. The appearance of the two-faced divine emperor had simply exceeded his imagination and shattered his worldview. He had never thought that there would be such an existence among the divine emperors. Fang Qingshan was a god emperor who could challenge him. If venerable sovereigns didn't show up, no one could compete with him. Two-faced god emperors could even confront venerable sovereigns head-on and defeat ordinary venerable sovereigns. Alas, Fang Qingshan let out a sigh. Even the two-faced divine emperor, who was now a two-faced venerable sovereign, with such cultivation and fighting capacity, was still trapped in the infinite void, unable to move forward in the celestial world. This showed how huge the gap between level 4 and level 5 was. Fang Qingshan originally thought that as long as he continued to cultivate step by step, as long as the timeless arc reached the eternal peak, he should be able to break the shackles naturally. However, now it seemed that he had taken it for granted. After all, the two-faced venerable sovereigns were already like this. Although there might not be existences stronger than the two-faced venerable sovereigns, there should be existences comparable to them. Otherwise, he would be the first on the Emperor's Steel. If they couldn't do it, could he really do it? Fang Qingshan couldn't help but doubt himself. Forget it. Things will eventually sort themselves out. I don't have to think about it now. After a long while, Fang Qingshan came to his senses. He shook his head and put these thoughts out of his mind. Now was time to enjoy the fruits of victory. This time, he had fought to his heart's content, but it had also been extremely dangerous. Especially at the end, when facing the two-faced divine emperor, Fang Qingshan had even risked his life. He had refined all the eternal divine marrow in his body and burned it to the limit. In the end, he had almost failed at the last step. Chapter 1685. But no matter what, Fang Qingshan had won in the end, even though Fang Qingshan had paid an unimaginable price in the process. Yes, Fang Qingshan had won, but the price he had paid was not small. Even though the damage he had suffered in the tidal tower was not real, everything seemed to be a simulated process. Therefore, he had fought with all his might and used all kinds of forbidden secret techniques. But when the Great Path reached a certain level, it could turn illusions into reality and create something out of nothing. Fang Qingshan and the two-faced God Emperor had undoubtedly reached this level. Even with the tidal tower and the origin of Great Path, they could only weaken part of the power. The rest had to be borne by the original body. For a two-faced sovereign venerable, this kind of backlash was just a minor ailment. It was completely harmless. But for Fang Qingshan, it was different. The eternal lotus seed was integrated into the timeless arc and turned into the core. It cannot be used easily. Not to mention that he had to regenerate it and use it in battle. And he had to face a forbidden secret technique like the three kowtows of the three venerables. Fang Qingshan's eternal bone marrow was even more so. The affairs of the world were like the sea. Humans traveled in the sea. Their bodies were the boats, and their primordial spirits were the people in the boats. The boats carried the people to the other side. Without a strong boat, how could they reach the other side? The bone marrow was the core of the body. Without the bone marrow, the body would be useless. Once the body was useless, the Great Path would be cut off. For example, celestial immortals, earth immortals, human immortals, and ghost immortals. Why were ghost immortals the worst? It was because they did not have a body and their Great Path was incomplete. If it was like this for immortals, it was even more so for emperors. Therefore, Fang Qingshan was truly going all out by burning his eternal marrow. He didn't care about his life, and he was going all out in this battle. Fortunately, he had the protection of the origin of Great Path in the tidal tower. Otherwise, after this battle, Fang Qingshan would have been finished. Even the eternal blessing would not have been able to make up for it. But overall, the benefits of this battle outweighed the disadvantages. It was one thing for him to be ranked first on the Divine Emperor title stele. The key was to have a hearty fight with an existence like two-faced deity emperor. This was a great opportunity for anyone. It was not weaker than a fourth-grade treasure, boundless merits, or the origin of the Great Path. After all, opponents were hard to come by. Combat was the best teacher. This battle had undoubtedly helped Fang Qingshan greatly. Compared to the benefits he had gained from killing the Xingyi Emperor, the benefits he had gained from this battle were comparable to the benefits he had gained from killing the Xingyi Emperor. Unlike the Xingyi Heavenly Emperor, he didn't leave any Emperor-level origin energy for Fang Qingshan, nor did he leave any memories of his true spirit. However, it was worthwhile for Fang Qingshan to see that although he was already at the peak of the Divine Emperor realm, he had not reached the limit yet. It was worth it. In the past, when Fang Qingshan was at the origin realm, he could compete with an immortal realm. When he was at the immortal realm, he could compete with a deity emperor. Moreover, he was not an ordinary deity emperor who had just reached the immortal realm. However, after becoming a deity emperor, it was too difficult to compete with a venerable emperor. Even though the timeless arc had reached the peak of the immortal realm, he could only protect himself at most. But now he saw this possibility from two-faced deity emperor. As long as he continued to make progress and break through the limit, he could also achieve this. Although they were deity emperors, both deity emperors and venerable sovereigns had started weak. Most importantly, if they wanted to go higher and further, they had to lay a deeper and more stable foundation. For ordinary people, if their foundation was too deep and too stable, it would instead restrict their growth. But for Fang Qingshan and the others, none of this was a problem. For them, Their only fear was that their foundation could not be deeper and more stable, because only in this way could they truly reach the limit of level for venerable sovereigns. Although two-faced venerable sovereigns had not broken through the limit and seen a whole new world. But if they could not reach or even surpass the level that two-faced venerable sovereigns had reached, how could they achieve something that he could not? Whoosh! While Feng Qingshan was sighing with emotion, he did not notice that on the tidal island, in the tidal tower, the tidal steel suddenly started to shake. The red sun rose, and its light was so bright that the river flowed like a vast ocean. Moreover, the disturbance at this moment was not only twice as great as when Feng Qingshan had obtained the purple title, but it was more than 10 times greater than when he had obtained the purple title. And the disturbance was getting bigger and bigger as time went by. In a flash, the tidal steel suddenly rose by itself, as if it was going to fly up. And it was not only the tidal steel and the tidal tower where Feng Qingshan was, but all the tidal steels and the tidal towers in the entire boundless void were shining with endless light at this moment. There was purple in the gold, and gold in the purple. Supreme venerable. It was extremely dazzling and eye-catching. At this moment, the tidal steel was shining brightly, and the purple titles appeared one after another. There were those who could suppress the mountains and rivers with their fists, those who could shock the world with their swords, those who were high and mighty, those who could look down on the world, those who were merciful, those who traveled the world alone, those who were unparalleled, and those who could sweep the world with their might. These people were the best of the best among the purple titles. Among them, there were many who had obtained the first purple title before. At this moment, 1,000 sails were competing and 100 barges were vying for the current. Of course, among them, the most dazzling name was naturally Feng Qingshan's name. He was above everyone else, and he was at the top, looking down on all the other mountains. The stars surrounded the moon. At this moment, no matter where one was in the boundless void or in the universe, no matter who it was, no matter what they were doing, they could clearly feel this strange phenomenon. They could all see these names. The reason why other people's names appeared was not because they had obtained benefits. For example, Yi Daoshuan's breakthrough and Jiang Overlord's breakthrough. It was not because the world was celebrating. It was because without comparison, there would be no harm. With comparison, there would be more contrast. The more powerful these people were, wouldn't Feng Qingshan, who was above them, be even more impressive? Seeing this scene, many people couldn't react. After all, the number one on the tidal steel, not to mention the divine emperor steel, didn't even have many immemorial steels. Therefore, the scene of heaven and earth celebrating was very rare. Other than some ancient antiques, not many people have even heard of it, let alone seen it. Therefore, everyone was a little confused at first and didn't know what was happening. However, before they could react, the natural source of heaven and earth told them what was happening. The great path is fighting. It is fighting for heaven, fighting for earth, fighting for fate, fighting for life, fighting for first place. Inside the Tower of Titles, on the Divine Emperor Steel, it is the first on the Nirvana continent. Chapter 1686. Number 1. Number 1 Divine Emperor. How is that possible? How arrogant! Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? This is not arrogance. This is the manifestation of the great path. As the saying went, there was no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. From ancient times until now, from mortals to immortals who didn't risk their lives to fight for the first place. For cultivators, fighting for the first place had benefits. They would be blessed with luck. For mortals, fighting for the first place was just for a false reputation. Just look at Ouyang Feng in the Condor shooting contest. He drove himself crazy for a false reputation. From this, it could be seen how important the title of first place was in people's hearts. It was just a false reputation. He was still the number 1 among mortals. Not to mention now, this number 1 also contained a great amount of luck. He was the number 1 divine emperor. It was no wonder that people's first reaction was disbelief, followed by anger. Unfortunately, No matter whether they believed it or not, no matter what they thought, they couldn't change the fact. However, a cold and majestic voice rang out from the tidal steel. Within the majestic voice, there was even a hint of joy hidden within it. The coldness and the dignified voice were easy to explain. As for the joy, it was because the more powerful cultivators there were, the more benefits the origin of heavens could get. If there were more people like that, even if someone could really break through the void and break through the heavens and realms might also break through. Everyone in the world came for benefits. Otherwise, why did you think Feng Qingshan won the title of first place and the Great Path sang his name? There was no hatred without reason, and there was no love without reason. Everything had a cause and effect. Then, with the Great Path as the brush, the boundless void as the paper, and the luck as the ink, the imperial writing brush was like a beam. The brush was like a beam, and the outline was smooth. The tip of the brush changed, and there seemed to be a sonorous sound. In an instant, the two shining characters of the Nirvana realm were outlined. Rumble. The two characters floated in the air, shining brightly. Boundless light instantly filled the entire tidal tower, sweeping toward the boundless void and the heavens and realms. Nirvana, Nirvana, Nirvana. The voice first came from the small island where the tidal tower was located. Then, the voice gradually spread out in all directions, to the 9 heavens and 10 earths, to the chaotic world that was as numerous as the grains of sand in the Ganges River, and to the boundless, boundless void. At this moment, be it ordinary people, experts who had become immortals, or bigwigs who lived as long as the world, whether they were in the various worlds, the river of space-time, the endless abyss, or even the two-realm battlefield, everyone could clearly see the name appearing in the air. Looking at this name, in an instant, it was completely imprinted in his soul. It was hard to erase. From then on, the Nirvana realm had become the true name of the great Tao for those below the primordial chaos realm. Anyone who sincerely recites this name will be rewarded with good fortune. Writing these 2 words also had boundless magical powers. Of course, correspondingly, if one harbored evil intentions, one would also be met with misfortune. Nirvana, Divine Emperor, number 1 in all heavens. Hearing and witnessing this scene, almost everyone below the level of venerable sovereigns had a strong light flash in their eyes, and they slowly uttered the words Nirvana realm. After 10 years of hard work, no one would ask about him, and he would become famous overnight. Although Feng Qingshan had already been very famous before, it was obvious that he could not be compared to now. Even the Xingyi Great Emperor's death could not be compared to him. After all, in everyone's opinion, the Xingyi Great Emperor's failure of possession was filled with too many uncertainties. Among them, with the help of the Dao sect, the Xingyi Great Emperor was no longer the Xingyi Great Emperor of the past. His strength was not even 1/100th of his original strength. Also, however, Feng Qingshan had obtained the title of number 1 on the Divine Emperor Steel through battle after battle. He had not used any tricks, so naturally, it was completely different. Of course, most people still did not know about Feng Qingshan. They only knew that it represented Feng Qingshan's Nirvana realm name. However, this was not important. At this moment, everyone was looking at the 2 big words in the sky with bright eyes. Their hearts were surging with emotions, and they wished they could replace him. This was similar to when Feng Qingshan had obtained the title of number 1 in the Dao sect's Inner Sanctum competition. He had encouraged all the outer and inner sanctum disciples to work hard and cultivate. Now that Feng Qingshan had obtained the title of number 1 in the Divine Emperor Steel, it naturally had the same effect. Everyone fantasized that one day they would be able to become famous like Feng Qingshan, and they could not wait to cultivate and make a breakthrough. However, no one knew how long this thought and motivation would last. After all, everyone would have 3 minutes of enthusiasm, especially when they were stimulated. However, although their goal was good, when they realized that it was just a castle in the sky, and they could not achieve it no matter how hard they tried, they would feel despair and give up. At the same time, just as the Great Path was announcing Fong Qingshan's name. Fong Qingshan was thrown out of the tidal tower. He stood in front of the tidal tower and raised his head to look up. He saw a purple gold luck that seemed to connect the heavens and the earth appear above his head. It descended from the sky and enveloped him. This was one of the benefits that Fong Qingshan had obtained after obtaining the title of number 1 on the tidal stele. Luck. Compared to the luck he had obtained when he obtained the title of number 1 on the tidal stele, the luck he had obtained at this moment was more than 10 times, or even more than 100 times. Although it was not as good as the luck Fong Qingshan had obtained after he had destroyed the Xingyi martial emperor, it was not much worse. This was not to say that the Xingyi martial emperor was not good, but his luck was not good. Otherwise, he would not have been so unlucky that he did not even have a top-notch treasure, and he would not have been killed by Fong Qingshan, who was not even a venerable sovereign. Moreover, he was not at his peak. His luck had fallen to the bottom when he had been devoured by the Great Path after he had cut his doctrine. Although he had recovered a lot in recent years, his luck was at most 1% of what it had been at his peak. It was equivalent to an ordinary venerable sovereign's luck. Otherwise, if he had been at the peak of his luck and had received help from the heavens and the earth, he would not have been killed by Fong Qingshan, even if he had not succeeded in his possession. Moreover, there was the number 1. Anything that had the title of number 1 would be different. For example, in the desolation, the first toilet bowl that had opened up the sky had become the primordial chaos golden dipper. The first dragon that had opened up the sky had become the ancestral dragon. The first mountain that had opened up the sky had become Mount Buzhou, and the first saint that had opened up the sky had become Hongjun. Anyone who had the title of number 1 would have an indescribable luck, which was extremely mysterious. Putting all of this aside, as this luck descended, the one who was the most excited and benefited the most was not Fong Qingshan, but the all-heaven chessboard. In fact, this was not difficult to understand. After all, the all-heaven chessboard was originally a luck treasure, and luck was the best tonic for it. Chapter 1687. Why was it called the all-heaven chessboard? Was it because it could travel through all the realms? No, that was not the case. There were many others who could do this. At least, the chaos bead in Yang Mei's hand had this effect. The all-heaven chessboard's ability to travel through all the realms was not its purpose. Its real purpose was to seize the providence of all the realms. Every time a world was opened, not only would Fong Qingshan be able to make use of the world's resources to advance by leaps and bounds, the all-heaven chessboard would also be able to secretly seize the world's essence and luck. By condensing the providence of a world as its chess pieces, it could communicate with as many worlds as it had chess pieces. Moreover, although many of them were minor chiliocosm, medium chiliocosm, desolation world, and chaotic world were few and far between. However, just like the two-phase deity emperor's forbidden secret method, the three venerables' three kowtows, it could affect the providence of the eternal emperor dynasty, the sacred Buddha clan, and the primordial demon sect. If Fong Qingshan really did not care and activated the all-heaven chessboard, he could still affect the providence of all the open worlds. However, this could only be used once. After all, he was using the all-heaven chessboard. Once the providence of the world found out, it could immediately cut off the connection, just like how the eternal sovereign and the others had interfered with the tidal tower. Unless Fong Qingshan's strength reached the level of the two-phase sovereign and could suppress all the realms, he could not use this trick unless it was absolutely necessary. Let's not talk about this for now. But then again, the heavens weren't the key. Luck was the key. That was why the all-heaven chessboard was so excited when it saw the providence descending from the heavens. For it, providence was like the eternal blessing to the timeless Arkansas. Without the eternal blessing, even if the timeless Ark had enough resources, it could not advance any further. Without providence, the all-heaven chessboard, or in other words, all the providence treasures were like people who had lost their souls. A chessboard rose into the sky. The chessboard bore the weight of the heavens, and the crisscrossed lines formed a grid that encompassed the world. Although many places on the chessboard were still empty, as more and more worlds were opened, the fate would become thicker and thicker and one day, it would be comparable to the boundless void. The chess pieces were as translucent as jade. Each chess piece was a world of its own. The more ancient and majestic the world, the closer the chess piece was to the center, and the brighter and larger it was. The stars were like the sands of the Ganges River. As the luck fell, it was instantly devoured by the chessboard. Paths were opened up one by one, extending out into nothingness. The aura of the chessboard continued to rise. Due to Feng Qingshan's advancement, the All-Heaven chessboard had already improved by leaps and bounds after devouring the Xingyi the Arch. At this moment, after devouring the providence of the person ranked first on the title God Emperor Steel, there was a hint of a qualitative change. It gave Feng Qingshan the feeling that he was on the Dao while ranking. In other words, this treasure was about to break through to the 4th grade. Very soon, very soon. Seeing this scene, Feng Qingshan was not disappointed. He knew that a Tier 4 Supreme Treasure was the same as an Emperor Treasure. It was a significant transformation. Although this step was only a step away, it would be a whole new world for him once he crossed it. He was not in a hurry. Just like when he broke through to the Venerable Emperor realm, he believed that as long as his cultivation broke through to the Venerable Emperor realm, the Timeless Arc would break through to the Ancient realm, and the All-Heaven chessboard would break through to the 4th grade. Even now, the power of the All-Heaven chessboard had already surpassed the Heaven-Splitting Axe, the Chaotic Bead, the Green Lotus of Creation, and the Fate Jade Plate, which had made Feng Qingshan envious in the past. In terms of profundity, the All-Heaven chessboard was even better than them, whether it was in terms of attack, defense, or support. Of course, in addition to the All-Heaven chessboard, Feng Qingshan also gained a lot of benefits. At the moment when the luck enveloped Feng Qingshan, he suddenly felt that his ears and eyes were sharp, his mind was clear, and his primordial spirit was clear. The cultivation that had been suppressed by Feng Qingshan just now seemed to be restless again. Feng Qingshan hurriedly suppressed it, lest he involuntarily broke through again. He did not go into seclusion to digest the Emperor-level source energy of the Xingyi Martial Emperor because he did not want to break through too quickly. Therefore, at this moment, he naturally would not use the luck to improve his cultivation. What a guy! Everyone else wanted nothing more than to soar into the sky, break through their bottlenecks, and break through their cultivation. Feng Qingshan, on the other hand, had been suppressing himself time and time again. If news of this were to spread, would others be envious, jealous, and hateful? However, although his cultivation did not break through, his comprehension and wisdom had been enhanced. The reincarnation Tao-seeking hand that he had just created was more mysterious, and it was easier for him to digest the previous battle. Of course, the most important thing was to recover from his injuries. Otherwise, why would it be said that luck and merit were all-purpose existences? Not only could it be used to refine treasures, but it could also increase the probability of obtaining opportunities, turn misfortunes into blessings, improve cultivation, and heal injuries. As mentioned earlier, Feng Qingshan had decided to go all out in this battle. Furthermore, because he didn't have to worry too much about the consequences, he had used the eternal heavenly battleship to create the eternal lotus seed and had even extracted all of his eternal god quintessence. That was not all. He also had to face the forbidden secret technique of the two-faced deity emperor, the 3 venerables, and the 3 kowtows. Although he had won in the end, with the isolation of the tidal tower and the protection of the great path source, Feng Qingshan had still been seriously injured. Part of it was due to his own exhaustion, but the other part was due to the attack of the forbidden secret technique. Although he had suppressed it, his injuries were still there. Moreover, it had affected a part of Feng Qingshan's strength. Of course, because Feng Qingshan still had the power source of the Xingyi Emperor and the eternal blessing, Feng Qingshan did not take it to heart. For others, this might mean that the great path had been severed, but for him, it was only a matter of time before he recovered. However, before this problem was solved, Feng Qingshan's strength was greatly affected. At this moment, under the blessing of this luck, the injuries that Feng Qingshan had suffered were further weakened. The luck cleansed his body, and some of the original hidden injuries were easily removed. Even if he had been injured by the forbidden secret technique, and even if he had been injured by the burning of the source, his injuries were greatly alleviated. As if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders, Fong Qingshan felt extremely relaxed. In the past, he felt like he had been carrying a heavy load, but now he felt like he was traveling with a light load. It was unprecedentedly good, and even his potential seemed to have been enhanced. It became even more shocking. This was the effect of the luck cleansing his body and soul. The effect was undoubtedly comparable to the cleansing of one's muscles and marrow. It was no different from being reborn. This kind of benefit was almost impossible to obtain during normal cultivation. It was a pity that even the luck cleansing of the Divine Emperor Title Tablets #1 couldn't completely recover because the injuries he had suffered were too great. However, for Fong Qingshan, this was already very good. At least, before the luck had recovered, he could only display 50% of his original cultivation. Now that the luck had recovered, he could display 80% of his original battle strength. Chapter 1688. Fong Qingshan's rewards for participating in the fight for the title this time around were simply too great. First of all, it was a rare experience to be able to fight with so many top-notch divine emperors. If it were outside, one wouldn't even dare to think about it. After all, if these people were independent cultivators, their whereabouts would naturally be unknown. If they were influential people, they would naturally be in a high position. How would they easily fight with you, especially when it was a life-and-death battle? Even if they gathered here, even if it wasn't a life-and-death battle, many people wouldn't be willing to fight with you. After all, if any Tom, Dick, or Harry could challenge them, they wouldn't be able to live for another day. If you were famous, they wouldn't be willing to fight with you. After all, they cared about their reputation. If they didn't fight, they wouldn't be able to tell. Once they fought, they would know who was stronger, who would be willing to be weaker than others. Moreover, it might affect one's luck as well as the morale of the forces behind them. If it weren't for the Tidal Tower, where one person and one cultivation level could only challenge once, this place would probably be full of people. Speaking of which, after fighting with so many experts, Fong Qingshan had digested the fighting experience of the Xingyi Emperor and turned it into his own fighting ability. He had also perfected his Dao querying punch. In particular, when fighting with the two-faced divine emperors, he had seen the power of the forbidden secret method. He knew that there would always be someone stronger than him, and he could continue to break through his limits and strengthen his foundation. It wasn't just the increase in fighting power that came with the breakthrough in cultivation. Then, it was the addition of luck. The celestial chessboard had gained great benefits, and he had also recovered from his injuries and improved his cultivation under the influence of luck. Apart from that, there were two other benefits of winning the first place on the Divine Emperor Title Tablet. One of them was naturally the heavens and earth singing. The Great Path is fighting for heaven, earth, luck, life, and #1. In the Title Tower on the Divine Emperor Tablet, #1 in the Nirvana realm. As time passed, the voice of the Great Path became louder and louder, and the area it covered kept expanding. At first, it was only near the Tidal Tower, but now it had covered the entire boundless void. Moreover, it was still expanding rapidly, covering more areas. The river of time and space, the two-realm battlefield, the endless abyss. The sound became louder and louder, and it couldn't be stopped even if he didn't want to hear it. As for the last one, it was to roam the world. He didn't know when, but at this moment, he couldn't care about the flow of time. All of a sudden, the Tidal Tower shone with dazzling light, which instantly enveloped Fong Qingshan. Those who didn't know what was going on might even think that Fong Qingshan was being attacked. Following this, Fong Qingshan's body suddenly shook violently. In a blink of an eye, his soul left his body. In the blink of an eye, he found himself in the sky above the tidal steel, looking down at the boundless sky. The sky was blue, mysterious, and bright. He could see 1,000 miles ahead. This is Fang Qingshan was caught off guard by this sudden turn of events, which made him even more confused. However, Fang Qingshan was not flustered at all. He was merely waiting for the situation to unfold, waiting for it to happen. Firstly, it was because of his calm state of mind in the face of danger. Secondly, it was because he knew that at this moment, luck was on his side. When the time came, heaven and earth would support him, so there would definitely be no problems. With the source of the Great Path protecting him, even if a venerable emperor attacked, he would still be fine. Therefore, this sudden change might be a good thing for him. As expected, after a short while, his guess was confirmed. After 10 breaths' time, the tidal steel, which was originally glowing brightly like a sun in the sky, suddenly experienced some changes. Amidst the colorful lights, the tidal steel suddenly transformed into a heavenly ship that soared into the sky. This heavenly ship might not be as good as Fang Qingshan's eternal heavenly ship in terms of offense, defense, and support. However, its quality was not inferior to Fang Qingshan's eternal heavenly ship. In fact, it was even better than Fang Qingshan's eternal heavenly ship. After all, this heavenly ship was transformed from the tidal steel, which was a top-grade 4 treasure. Most importantly, it was much faster than the eternal heavenly ship. Fang Qingshan stood at the prow of the ship with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked like he was floating in the wind, as if he was going to ascend to heaven and become an immortal. All of a sudden, the road was paved with blue clouds and thousands of golden lights and auspicious colors. The timeless arc soared into the sky. At that moment, the previously deep and dim, boundless void suddenly became dazzling, as the light from above and below shone brightly in all directions. Fast, very fast, extremely fast. Not to mention Fang Qingshan's timeless arc, and not to mention the battle between him and the two-faced godly emperors. None of these were worth mentioning. The reason why it was so fast was actually understandable. After all, they were traveling around the world, and the boundless void was so huge. If they were slow, it would take a very long time for them to travel around the world. Even if Fang Qingshan himself didn't care about it, if it was possible, he wouldn't care, and he would rather do it. However, the Tao cared about the others. All of a sudden, one could see streams of fate and force gathering toward Fang Qingshan from all directions. This was all because Fang Qingshan had obtained the title of the Godly Emperor, and his reputation was known throughout the world, which then turned into will to support him. Streams of purple gold ribbons were like rivers flowing into the sea, and the fragrance wafted for thousands of miles. It looked extremely beautiful and dreamy. Of course, although the speed was fast, it wasn't so fast that people couldn't react. Otherwise, the world tour would be completely meaningless. Although the speed was fast, others could see Fang Qingshan's face clearly, and Fang Qingshan could also see the sky. Although it was just a passing glance, it was already very rare. At that moment, Fang Qingshan's senses and vision seemed to be infinitely magnified. He felt the scene in front of him change, as if he had entered a strange space. He carefully looked around. At that moment, Fang Qingshan felt like he was in desolation, and he was using the supreme clear sky mirror to observe the 3 realms. At a glance, it seemed like he was completely placed in an endless starry sky. There were vast and boundless stars everywhere. Of course, at that moment, the starry sky wasn't a starry sky, and the stars weren't stars either. The starry sky was the boundless void, and the stars were the myriad worlds. Whoosh! Fang Qingshan felt like he was moving crazily through the starry sky. The speed was indescribable, and he couldn't even see it clearly. All he could see were countless stars flashing in front of him. Then, Fang Qingshan saw the Dao Gate, the Tidal Tower, the 10,000 B Secret Realm, the Gloomy Corpse Mountain Range, the Fallen Dragon Secret Realm, the Supreme Emperor Dynasty, the Pangu Chaotic World that was hidden by the Dao, the River of Time and Space, the 2-realm battlefield, the Endless Abyss, and, at that moment, the information he received was no less than the memories of the Xingyi Great Emperor. Chapter 1689. After all, even 99% of the venerable sovereigns didn't know how big the boundless void was. Even for them, only a few of them had traveled across the entire world. However, at this moment, with the help of the origin of the Great Path, Feng Qingshan was traveling across the entire world while sitting on the timeless ark that the tidal steel had transformed into. Although he couldn't get a good look at it, because it was too fast, he could tell that a quantitative change could lead to a qualitative change, even if he only had a cursory glance. Traveling across the world wasn't for Feng Qingshan to travel at public expense, nor was it for him to show off. Just like Emperor Qin, Yang Guang, and the others who traveled across the world, although they had other purposes, their real purpose was to consolidate their territory. As for Feng Qingshan, when he traveled across the world, the Great Path allowed him to see the heavens clearly. For him, it was equivalent to comprehending the Great Path and understanding the nature of the heavens. If Feng Qingshan could digest the memories of traveling across the world, the benefits he would gain would definitely be greater than the Xingyi monarch's memories. Profound, magnificent, and soul-stirring. The boundless void was vast and full of mysteries. Feng Qingshan stared at it and immersed himself in it. He had an indescribable feeling. He didn't know how much time had passed. Maybe it was only a moment, or maybe it was 10 or 100 years. No one could say for sure. He couldn't reverse any of this. He could only watch it happen. At this moment, Feng Qingshan seemed to have traveled across the boundless void spiritually. He could appear anywhere he wanted. This was a great opportunity. As the saying went, Tao begets one, one begets two begets three, and three begets all things. Humans followed the earth gave birth to heaven, the heaven followed Tao, and the Tao followed nature. At this moment, Feng Qingshan was observing the heavens and the void. He was observing the heaven, the earth, the myriad realms, the void, and the nature. What a marvelous technique. The first sky tour. Interesting. It's not just interesting. You didn't get the first place back then. It's not that easy to get the first place. Two venerable sovereigns occupied the first place on the divine emperor's stele for more than 10 years. Who could surpass them? Isn't there someone now? That's just a trick. It doesn't matter if it's a trick or not. He's the real number one now. Most importantly, this person is actually Feng Qingshan. Yeah, recently this kid has been. It's both unexpected and reasonable. Everyone, including most of the venerable sovereigns, looked envious, jealous, and hateful as they watched Feng Qingshan travel around the heavens. After all, being famous in the world and touring the world wasn't just a supreme honor. Most importantly, it was an enormous, fortuitous encounter. There was no need to talk about luck. This sort of opportunity to roam the heavens and travel for 10,000 years with a single thought was not something that just anyone could enjoy at any time. After all, even many venerable sovereigns couldn't travel through the infinite void. If they had this opportunity, it would be of great benefit to them. After breaking through to divine emperor, two-faced sovereigns could grow so fast and reach such a high level, which might have the effect of this opportunity. Of course, they were envious, jealous, and hateful. However, for the Dao sect, there was only joy left. It was an honor for them. After all, Feng Qingshan was a member of the Dao sect. There weren't many people in the Dao sect who had purple titles, let alone the number one title. This was a first in history. Moreover, when Feng Qingshan fought with two-faced divine emperors, the title tower couldn't stop the commotion. It was cool to lean against a big tree. With such an existence, as a disciple of the Dao sect, it was natural that when one achieved the Dao, even his pets would rise to heaven. After being famous in the world and touring the world, Feng Qingshan's trip to the tidal tower had finally come to an end. According to the original plan, Feng Qingshan should have gone to the two-realm battlefield, the river of space-time, or the endless abyss to train. However, he didn't do so at this moment. Instead, he drove the timeless ark toward a strange void area. The reason for this was that Feng Qingshan had accidentally seen a scene when he was traveling around the heavens. In a chaotic world, in a familiar chaotic world, In the Pan-Gu chaotic world. In the past, after Feng Qingshan and Yang Mei had left the Pan-Gu chaotic world, Hong Jun, or rather, the Great Tao, had destroyed the nearby wormholes and concealed the heavenly secrets. As a result, Feng Qingshan and Yang Mei couldn't sense the way back. Although it didn't matter to Feng Qingshan whether he returned or not was only his mood. This kind of behavior being cut off by others was very unpleasant. This time, he was touring the world and observing the heavens. Perhaps it was because of Feng Qingshan's obsession, or because his cultivation had increased to a certain level, or for some other reason. But Feng Qingshan could easily sense the Pan-Gu chaotic world again. If one didn't return to one's hometown after becoming rich, it would be like walking at night in brocade clothes. Although Feng Qingshan wouldn't have such shallow thoughts now, he was still willing to go back and take a look. After all, that was the starting point of everything for him. There would be no sea of blood created by Mosquito Dauren. There would be no Pan-Gu people. Back then, although everyone had benefited from Pan-Gu's legacy, he had benefited a lot. At the very least, the Red Lotus of Fire was a part of the creation Green Lotus. The Bell of Chaos was a part of the Sky-Splitting Axe, and the creation Green Lotus and Sky-Splitting Axe were Pan-Gu's special treasures. There is also the Sky-Splitting Mark of Pan-Gu, the Primordial Sky Measuring Ruler, the 5-element flags, the Life and Death Gourd, with the current speed of the Timeless Arc, the sails fluttering, the Freedom Wings, and the Permitha Bridge. It was faster than when he had just left the Dao sect, even though it couldn't be compared to when he was touring the world. This was because of the Permitha Bridge. Previously, when the Great Tao announced its name, the two words Permitha were engraved in the origin Great Tao, like the true name of the Great Tao. Those who sincerely recited the two words would be rewarded with good fortune, while those with evil intentions would encounter bad luck. The two words Permitha already had great power, and it had received the blessing of fate from the unseen world. Since the Permitha Bridge had such a name and was Feng Qingshan's treasure, its value would naturally rise along with it. Putting all this aside, Feng Qingshan piloted the timeless arc like a stream of light, like a flying star. It looked lonely, but it was extremely dazzling, as if it had ignited the beauty of life. In the past, when Feng Qingshan was piloting the timeless arc, he naturally wouldn't be so unscrupulous. Although it was fast, it was invisible. Now, he naturally didn't have to care about this. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. He didn't know how much time had passed. The palpitation in Feng Qingshan's heart grew stronger. Obviously, this meant that his destination was getting closer and closer to Feng Qingshan. And that was Feng Qingshan's destination this time, the Pan-Gu chaotic world. At a certain point in time, the eternal heavenly vessel suddenly came to a halt. It stopped in a vast expanse of empty space. Chapter 1690. He had arrived. Yes, this seemingly empty place in front of him was the location of the Pan-Gu chaos world that Feng Qingshan had sensed with the help of the Great Way when he was traveling around the world. The reason why it had become like this was not because the Pan-Gu chaos world had been erased by the existence of a venerable emperor in such a short period of time. Instead, someone had set up a concealment formation outside the chaos world. Moreover, the grade of this formation was not low. It was at least at the divine emperor level. Huh, Feng Qingshan sneered. If it had been anyone else, they might have been deceived. However, it was obviously not enough to deal with Feng Qingshan. Not to mention that he had seen this place with the help of the Great Way. Moreover, there was an unbreakable connection between him and the Pan-Gu chaos world. It was not something that this formation could cut off. Moreover, even without this connection, as long as Feng Qingshan paid attention, everything would be exposed to him. After all, at this moment, Feng Qingshan was the #1 divine emperor. As for the two-faced divine emperor not being in his peak state, however, he was not a divine emperor now. Therefore, apart from venerable emperors, even some ordinary venerable emperors who had just become venerable emperors might not be stronger than Feng Qingshan. Moreover, he still had the Doomsday Eye. Although its most powerful ability was the Doomsday, great divine ability, it also had the function of other pupil spiritual treasures. It could break illusions. Camouflage techniques, invisibility techniques, and so on were almost useless in front of him. The reason why this place looked so ordinary was that it seemed to be no different from other voids. However, it was because someone had set up a concealment formation. It was just like the Three Realms formation in the Tao chaotic world. However, when the Three Realms formation of the Tao sect was combined, it could not only conceal but also defend and attack. It could even resist a venerable emperor. This formation only had the function of concealment. However, it was already very good. After all, an ordinary deity emperor or even a peak deity emperor might not be able to discover the abnormality here. However, Fang Qingshan rubbed between his eyebrows. Immediately, a pupil appeared. This pupil did not look exquisite. Instead, it was very simple and unadorned, like the stone tools used by ancient humans. It was full of brutality, obscurity, decay, and despair. From this pupil, a gray light could be seen flickering and flickering. Although this pupil looked very different from the Hongjun Tiandao eye, it also exuded endless majesty. The moment it appeared, even though there were no living beings in the surroundings, regardless of whether it was the spiritual Qi, the great Tao, or any other living beings, they all felt as if there were invisible shackles placed on their bodies, putting them under immense pressure. Some of them even sensed a terrifying scene appearing in front of them when they had a sudden impulse. Crack! Crash! It was as if a venerable emperor had fallen. The heavens mourned, the earth cried, a rain of blood fell, a death knell sounded, the spirit veins dried up, the spiritual Qi dissipated, the immortals and Buddhas fell, reincarnation ceased to exist, cultivation became a legend, the end of days, the great Tao fell. Reincarnation, Tao-seeking fist, eye of the last days. This was a peerless divine ability that Fang Qingshan had created based on the eye of the last days. He'd observed its actions and comprehended its intent. He looked through the eye of the last days. It was as if the concealment formation did not exist at all. Pangu's chaos world instantly appeared in front of his eyes. Compared to before he left all those years ago, Pangu's chaos world had undoubtedly undergone earth-shattering changes. He did not know if it was because the chaos world had evolved on its own or if there were other reasons. However, the outermost layer was still the world barrier, the chaos barrier. However, it was clearly far inferior to the Tao chaos world. Not to mention the Tao chaos world, which only had one entrance to the heaven dimensional gate. Anyone who entered from other places would immediately be attacked by the Three Realms formation. Even a peak deity emperor would lose a layer of skin if he did not die. Not to mention a deity emperor. Even an undying would be able to sneak in here as long as they had the slightest bit of ability. Of course, the first requirement was to be able to see through the concealment formation on the outside world. They also had to be able to find a flaw in the world barrier. Otherwise, even Jiang Overlord, Yidao Xian, and the others might not be able to break through by force. They might even be injured by the world quintessence's counterattack. Through the world barrier, he could see boundless primal chaos energy roiling incessantly within the boundless primal chaos. From time to time, earth, wind, water, and fire would surge. Numerous spaces would be born, destroyed, and reborn. Such a situation had probably never happened before, apart from when Pangu split the heavens. Of course, it wasn't because someone was trying to imitate Pangu's split open the skies. Instead, it was because the entire Pangu's chaos world had improved tremendously, and the entire world was evolving incessantly. Fang Qingshan could sense a strand of exuberant vitality from it. Moreover, it was different from the world of desolation. The entire chaos world was like a resplendent starry sky, and within the vast primal chaos, there was a huge star that was radiating resplendent starlight. This star should be Pangu's world of desolation, because it was the strongest restraint for Fang Qingshan. Apart from that, around Pangu's world of desolation, there were several other worlds of desolation, as well as a large number of greater thousand realms, all shining with starlight. As for the remaining medium and minor thousand realms, there were countless of them. They were all centered around Pangu's world of desolation, forming a vast star region. It's indeed different. Fang Qingshan nodded. If it continued to evolve like this, although it was still very far from the Tao Chaos world, and even the Merchant Chaos world, it would no longer be like when Pangu split open the skies. Moreover, it wouldn't be like when Pangu split open the skies back then, where it couldn't even accommodate an immortal. Not to mention undying, it wouldn't be a problem for a God Emperor or even a peak God Emperor to appear. Moreover, there wouldn't be a need for people to search for the Tao. The Tao would subtly guide it, because as one's cultivation level increased, the origin of the world would also improve. It would benefit greatly. Just like when Fang Qingshan obtained first place, the Tao became famous and toured the world. Wasn't it because of Fang Qingshan's appearance that the Tao also benefited greatly? As for why it schemed against Pangu in the past, Fang Qingshan could only say that he was born at the wrong time. At that time, the Tao was just born. Although he could also benefit from Pangu's advancement, the key was that Pangu's existence already seemed to be taking over the Tao. Compared to the benefits that Pangu's advancement would bring, Fang Qingshan's disadvantage was even greater. What if Pangu wanted to become the Tao itself and replace the Tao? Therefore, Fang Qingshan could only bear the pain and make the first move. Putting all this aside, after Fang Qingshan looked around, he couldn't wait to enter. He wanted to understand what happened in Pangu's world of chaos while he was away. How could there be such a huge change? Chapter 1691. If it was someone else, it would definitely be a troublesome thing to enter. After all, this was a chaotic world, and it had been set up. Even if one had some tricks up his sleeve, it would be very difficult to enter it quietly. But for Fang Qingshan, it couldn't be any easier. Regardless of whether it was breaking the illusion or entering the world barrier. Break! Fang Qingshan blinked his eyes and shot out an ending light in an instant. In an instant, both the formation that concealed the heavenly secrets and the protective formation seemed to have disappeared. The ending light had an absolute restraining effect on almost all spiritual great paths. The only ones that couldn't restrain it were those who could contend with the ending great path and those whose cultivation was much higher than Fang Qingshan's. Fang Qingshan had rarely used the ending light when he had fought against the two-faced divine emperor, because many of his techniques weren't any weaker than the ending light. Fang Qingshan had also rarely used it when he had fought against the Xingyi great emperor because of the absolute suppression of his cultivation. The formation outside Pangu's chaotic world obviously couldn't be compared to the Xingyi great emperor and the two-faced divine emperor. Under the illumination of the ending light, the formation seemed to be defenseless and opened its door to Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan took a step forward and easily entered Pangu's chaotic world. The moment Fang Qingshan entered Pangu's chaotic world, endless chaotic spiritual energy swept towards him like a surging sea wave. However, Fang Qingshan didn't care at all. Those who didn't know would think that it was just a breeze. Fang Qingshan couldn't help but take a deep breath. The chaotic spiritual energy might be violent and harmful to others, but it was no different from ordinary spiritual energy to Fang Qingshan. The chaotic spiritual energy might be violent and harmful to others, but it was no different from ordinary spiritual energy to Fang Qingshan. Even if Fang Qingshan hadn't encountered the Xingyi great emperor and hadn't broken through to the immortal realm, he wouldn't have cared about the chaotic spiritual energy. This spiritual energy and aura didn't hurt Fang Qingshan at all. Instead, it gave him a very comfortable feeling. It was a feeling that he hadn't felt for a long time, which was enough to make Fang Qingshan enjoy it. He felt like he had returned to the time when he was a baby. He was completely relaxed and comfortable. After all, Fang Qingshan was born in the Pangu chaotic world. It was here that he obtained the all-heavens chessboard and the eternal heavenly ship. It was here that he refined the clone of the world tree and the mosquito Taoist. It was here that he went from immortal to the immortal origin realm and left behind too many memories. He had long since jumped out of the river of fate. In order to leave this world and seek the Tao in the all heavens, he had severed his karma and paid a certain price. The arena battles, the heaven-measuring primordial ruler, fate could be transcended and karma could be severed, but roots, emotions, and memories couldn't be removed so easily. For this place, Fang Qingshan still had deep feelings for it. In fact, he wasn't the only one. Any normal person would do the same. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the saying that fallen leaves return to their roots. Putting all of this aside, just as Fang Qingshan was quietly enjoying this long-awaited tranquility in his heart, a sudden change occurred. Battle cries came from the distance. In Fang Qingshan's perception, a group of quasi-sages was chasing after a young woman. The woman was beautiful. She wasn't just beautiful, she was pretty flirtatious. Any other man would have been mesmerized by her in an instant. They would have died under a peony flower and become a ghost, especially now that she was being chased and injured. She looked even more pitiful and tempting. However, while there were people with ulterior motives, there were also people who were unperturbed. For these pursuers, their hearts were made of stone. They were completely unmoved and only wanted to kill this woman. It was as though they wouldn't stop until they reached their goal. As for sympathy, affection, if they knew about it, they would definitely scoff at it. What a joke. This woman wasn't a weak woman. She was a rose with thorns. Even though she looked weak and flirtatious, there was a murderous aura in her eyes. Even though she looked pathetic under the pursuit of a group of quasi-sages, she never gave up or begged for mercy. Moreover, this woman's cultivation wasn't weak at all. She was also a quasi-sage and in the late quasi-sage realm. Even though she wasn't worth mentioning in Fang Qingshan's eyes, this wasn't the infinite world or the boundless void. This was desolation. This was a place where there wasn't even an immortal realm expert. Even Hongjun Tiandao was only a half-step immortal realm expert. Even when Fang Qingshan left back then, desolation had made some progress and produced many origin immortals. However, quasi-sages were still the mainstay of various forces. But now, more than a dozen demi-saints had appeared in total. This was especially so for the party that was chasing after Lin Fan. To be able to send out more than 10 quasi-saints, even if it were the 3 religions of Taoism, the Buddhist sects, the monster race, the witch race, and the Azura race, it would still be difficult for them to do so. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan felt a sense of familiarity from the people who were chasing after the woman. It was very strange. These people were dressed in black robes. If one didn't pay attention, one might even ignore their existence. Their attacks were cunning and vicious. They focused on killing with one strike. Obviously, they were proficient in the art of assassination. If it was anyone else, they would have fallen into their trap. However, the woman wasn't easy to deal with either. Holding a blood-red longsword, she defended and fled at the same time. Her combat experience was very rich. One couldn't judge a book by its cover. She wasn't just a vase. You can't kill me. The beautiful woman used her sword to shatter the attacks behind her and shouted. Unfortunately, these people were like mutes. They ignored her completely. They knew that villains died because they talked too much. They just kept attacking. Even if they couldn't kill their opponents, it was good enough to inflict more wounds on them. People of lifeless Demon Palace, do you want to start a war with a Azura race? The woman spoke again. So, it's them. Fang Qingshan came to a sudden realization. He was wondering why this group of people gave him a strange, yet familiar feeling. It turned out that they were from lifeless Demon Palace. Back then, he had a lot of karma with this group of people. In Desolation, they started the challenge tournament. In All Heavens, they met Jiang Mingwei, which gave him the opportunity to join the Dao Will sect. Unfortunately, compared to the current Fang Qingshan, or rather, after he joined the Dao Will sect, the lifeless Demon Palace was not worth mentioning. He didn't take them seriously. Therefore, he didn't think that he would meet them as soon as he returned to Pan, Gu Chaotic World. Chapter 1692. There were no doors to fortune or misfortune. Only people could bring it upon themselves. For Fang Qingshan, At his current level, he had already set his sights on becoming a venerable emperor. He had set his sights on breaking through the peak venerable emperor realm and surpassing the emperor realm. He wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with the infinite sage Buddha, the eternal emperor, and even the two-faced emperor god. As for the lifeless demon palace, the existence that had once given him great pressure had long since disappeared from his mind. He would not purposely cause trouble for the lifeless demon palace. After all, it was not worth it. This was completely different from the trouble that the fallen dragon mystery realm, the Martial Pole sect, and the eternal heaven gate had caused him. The former was dispensable, while the latter was a dish best served cold for a gentleman to take revenge. However, he did not really care about the former. But the prerequisite was that you did not get close to him. An elephant did not care about ants under its feet, but if you got close to it, you would see if it would step on you. Moreover, not only did you get close to Fang Qingshan, but you also got involved with him. Although this might not have been their intention. But who would care? It was normal for people to side with their kin and not with reason. Moreover, the other party might not be in the right. It would have been fine if Fang Qingshan did not know about it, but he was chasing an Azura right under his nose. After all, the Azuras in the Desolation were all descendants of Mosquito Dauren. They were his direct descendants. If this spread, where would he hide his face? How would he face the Azura Emperor and the Azura tribe? Some old people were simply asking for death by hanging themselves. However, these people were asking for death in a very different way. It was as if someone was rushing them to die. Not only were they chasing the Azura tribe, but they were also coming for him. It seemed like they wanted to drag him, a bystander, into the matter and kill him. Yes, it was unknown whether the Azura woman was lucky, or the lifeless demon palace was unlucky, or it was a coincidence, or there were other reasons. In any case, they were moving in the direction of Fang Qingshan. Of course, the most important thing was that the woman from the Azura clan was stunned when she saw Fang Qingshan. Then, a look of ecstasy appeared on her face. As for the people from the lifeless demon palace, it was unknown whether it was because they were used to being arrogant, or because they were used to killing people to keep their mouths shut, or for some other reason, they disregarded everything else and wanted to get rid of Fang Qingshan. Sure enough, he was courting death. You couldn't even stop him. Fang Qingshan was actually someone who didn't like to meddle in other people's business. He had always been too lazy to interfere in matters that didn't involve him, unless he could see enough benefits. However, the situation now was obviously different. Disregarding the relationship between him and the people being hunted, Fang Qingshan would not let them off just because they were from the lifeless demon palace. After all, because of the lifeless demon palace, he could easily sever his karma and leave desolation. Also, because of the lifeless demon palace, he had coincidentally met Jiang Mingyue and had the opportunity to join the Dao sect. However, Fang Qingshan wouldn't thank them for this. If they didn't have the opportunity, it would be fine. However, now that they were in his hands, how could he not take revenge? Moreover, these people were courting death. They would rather kill the wrong person than let him off. There was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you came to hell. Fang Qingshan shook his head and sighed. Humans can be weak, and they can be weak, but the only thing they can't be weak is their eyesight. Otherwise, they won't live long. However, you can't make up for this now. Maybe in your next life. The people of lifeless demon palace were still confused, and they looked as if they were going to kill Fang Qingshan and the Shura woman. Fang Qingshan waved his sleeves, and it was as if he was just brushing off dust. The people of lifeless demon palace were confused, and they looked as if they were going to kill Fang Qingshan and the Shura woman. However, the result was that in an instant, the dozen or so sage-to-be and a half-step primordial chaos that were chasing after him were completely annihilated without any resistance. They did not even have the time to react. Not to mention the quasi-sages and half-step primordial chaos experts. Even if Demon Venerate Extermination was here, he wouldn't have fared any better. Even if Fang Qingshan had just broken through to the immortal realm, he would have been able to do this. However, he wouldn't have been able to do it in such an unconventional way. There was no big movement. For a moment, it was as if these people didn't exist at all. Like a dreamy bubble, they disappeared. The female Azura clan was dumbfounded. She blinked, as if she couldn't accept this. Although she had heard about how powerful Fong Qingshan was, seeing him in person was better than hearing about him. Then, when she came to her senses, she was even more surprised. After dealing with these blind people from the lifeless demon palace, Fong Qingshan looked at the female Azura clan, who was so excited that her eyes were about to blur. "You seem to know me?" asked Fong Qingshan. From the fact that the female Azura clan was first stunned when she saw him, and then she looked ecstatic, and when she saw that the people from the lifeless demon palace were killed by him without being able to fight back, Fong Qingshan guessed that she might have recognized him. Yes, I know, Patriarch, the female Azura clan member stammered. Perhaps it was because she was still panting for being chased, or because she was so excited that she was stammering, but she couldn't even speak coherently. "All right, compose yourself. Let's recover first." With a chuckle, Fong Qingshan flicked his finger, and a stream of aura entered the female's body. In an instant, the injuries he had suffered from being chased were healed, and even some of his previous internal injuries were healed. Even his cultivation level was raised to the half-step primordial chaos. Although Fong Qingshan could help him break through to the primordial chaos directly, that would be like spoiling a seedling through excessive enthusiasm. After all, the sage-to-be and primordial chaos were different realms. A small realm could be assisted, but it was best to rely on oneself for a big realm. Moreover, things that were obtained too easily were often not cherished. Furthermore, it was not to be passed down easily. "All right, tell me, why did the people from the lifeless demon palace chase you? Why did they dare to chase you? Also, after I leave, tell me about the situation in the desolation." "Yes, when Shuiyue of the Blood Sea thanks you, Patriarch." When Shuiyue recovered and quickly thanked Fong Qingshan. Then, with a bitter face, he told Fong Qingshan about the situation after he left. It turned out that after the challenge tournament, primordial chaos had appeared one after another in the desolation, and it could be said to be the golden age of cultivation. If it had continued to develop step by step, it would not have been impossible to restore the grand situation before the opening of the sky. As the situation gradually stabilized, the desolation forces began to be divided into 5 groups. They were Hongjun Tiandao's side, Lifeless Demon Palace's side, Buddha Demon's side, and Bloodsea's side. The rest were naturally the Witch, Demon, Dragon, Phoenix, and so on. However, this situation did not last long. Not long after Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei left the desolation, the situation began to go wrong. Without Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei, the Azura clan quickly declined. Chapter 1693. He didn't know if Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei were too powerful back then, and they were an eyesore to the Hongjun Heavenly Way, or if the Shura lineage had too much potential, or if there were only so many resources and they didn't want to share them with more people, or if there were other reasons. Hongjun Tiandao, the Buddhist demon tribe, and the Lifeless Demon Palace joined forces to suppress the Shura tribe. Although the Shura tribe had a strong foundation, even with the Shura sovereign, the means left behind by Fong Qingshan, and the human race and the Wu people as allies, they were still outnumbered. Moreover, allies were only allies. Hong Jun and the others weren't trying to kill them all. In the face of benefits, it was already good enough that they didn't help either side. Therefore, under the suppression of Hong Jun and the others, and under the observation of Long Feng and the others, the Shura tribe's overall strength instantly fell to its lowest point. Fortunately, they had Fushi, Chiyu, the Shura sovereign, Hutu, and, although the Shura tribe was weak, wasn't collapsing, they just needed to lie low for a while and shrink their territory, just like the Tao will sect after Great Emperor Fengzhen's death. If that was all, the Shura tribe could accept it. After all, flowers didn't bloom for 100 days, and people didn't have a good life for 1,000 days. There were ups and downs, and there were ups and downs. This was normal, as long as they persisted until the Shura tribe was no longer afraid of attacks, or until Fong Qingshan returned, everything would be resolved. However, while their thoughts were beautiful, reality gave them a resounding slap. Not only to the Shura tribe, but also to Hong Jun and the Great Tao. When it rains, it pours. When the ship is late, it hits the head. It was one thing for the Shura tribe to be suppressed by Hong Jun Tiandao, the lifeless demon palace, and the Buddhist demon palace. Although the Shura sovereign and the others were unhappy, they had to admit that they were inferior. Moreover, they were only being suppressed, not killed. After all, hadn't the patriarch Fong Qingshan died? Who knew if he would return? Moreover, as long as the blood seed didn't dry up, the Shura tribe wouldn't die. No one dared to risk universal condemnation and exterminate the Shura bloodline. Moreover, they were not alone. They still had the Wu people and the human race as allies. Moreover, Hong Jun Tiandao focused on balance and would not allow anyone to dominate. Otherwise, there would not have been a battle of God investiture. Otherwise, there would not have been a Buddhist sect flourishing in the original trajectory. If that was the case, the sea of blood lineage only needed to lay low for a period of time. Unfortunately, the plans of the heavens could not keep up with the changes. Who would have thought that in order to cut off Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei's return journey, the Great Tao concealed the heavenly secrets and destroyed the wormhole? However, even though they had guarded against Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei, they had failed to guard against the lifeless demon palace. Of course, the lifeless demon palace did not refer to the group of people who came to the desolation first. Otherwise, they wouldn't have compromised and wouldn't have started the arena tournament. It was the true lifeless demon palace. After all, after the poison god Marquis and his group disappeared, their life lamps were not extinguished. How could the lifeless demon palace ignore such a group of people? Previously, when Fong Qingshan had entered the myriad heavens and met Jiang Mingwei, the lifeless demon palace had been searching for the poison god Marquis and his group. As the saying goes, paper cannot wrap up fire. Humans leave their names behind, and geese leave their voices behind. Based on the various traces and the lifeless demon palace's methods of dealing with their disciples, they quickly found their way to Pan Gu's chaotic world. Yes, the lifeless demon palace was not a truly large faction, and the structure of the sect was very loose. Generally, they did not care too much about what their disciples were doing. As long as they could complete their tasks, it was fine. They were used to being left alone. However, this did not mean that they did not have a way to locate their disciples. After all, they first had to confirm whether their disciples had died. If they had been killed by the enemy, they would be responsible for avenging them. Of course, the most important thing was to prevent their disciples from betraying them so that they could clean up the sect. At first, the lifeless demon palace did not care. They only thought that the poison god Marquis and his group had been delayed by something. However, after a long time, they realized that something was wrong. Thus, they used a method similar to the soul tracking technique to follow Liu AI's tracks. Very soon, the extermination demon Venerable and the others found their way to them. What happened next could be foreseen. The lifeless demon palace was pleasantly surprised to see a newly born chaos world, a chaos world that had yet to be explored. However, the pleasant surprise for the lifeless demon palace was a great calamity for the people of desolation. After all, this was the real lifeless demon palace. The extermination demon Venerable had the strength of a peak immortal realm expert. He was not someone that the poison god Marquis and the others could compare to. The people of desolation did not have the strength to resist. At the beginning, it was like a war. The people of desolation were suppressed without any resistance. If they had not been fighting on their home ground and had the support of the Great Path, they would have been killed by the extermination demon Venerable at the beginning. What Hongjun Tiandao? What Azura clan? What Lich? What Dragon and Phoenix? Even during the most prosperous chaotic era, when Pan-Gu was still around, they would not have been able to resist. The entire Pan-Gu chaotic world would have become the headquarters of the lifeless demon palace. Even if they had not killed the people of desolation in one fell swoop, the people of desolation had been forced to retreat. Now, almost all the people of Desolation had been chased out of the main world of Desolation. They could only create a new world in the chaotic world. Previously, the star region that Feng Qingshan had seen had looked beautiful and magnificent. However, to the people of Desolation, it was a humiliation. The Desolation world in the center had become the headquarters of the lifeless demon palace. The surrounding Desolation worlds had been created by Hong Jun and the other great forces. As for why the lifeless demon palace's demon, Lord Extermination Demon Venerable, and the others couldn't chase after the enemies and kill Hong Jun and the others, there were a few reasons. One of them was that the Extermination Demon Venerable had no time to care about Hong Jun and the others. As the saying goes, draw the bow with force, use the arrow with length. To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. To capture the bandits, first capture the leader. The reason why the people of Desolation had been able to hold on until now was because of the chaotic world's origin will. In order to completely control a chaotic world, the world's origin will was the key. Therefore, the Extermination Demon Venerable had focused his attention on the world's origin will. He did not have the time to pay attention to Hong Jun and the others. Once he completely controlled the Pangu chaotic world, wouldn't Hong Jun and the others be fish on the chopping block? Another reason was that Hong Jun and the others could not be underestimated. Their aptitudes were excellent. Although they could not be compared to Feng Qingshan, it could be seen just by looking at Yang Mei. If it wasn't for the fact that they had not connected with a measurable void, they would have already risen to the top. Now, with the support of the Great Tao, the cultivation of Hong Jun and the others had advanced by leaps and bounds. Among them, Hong Jun, Ro, Hutu, and the others had reached the late immortal realm. With the support of the Great Tao, they were not weaker than the people of lifeless Demon Palace. Because of their existence, the people of Desolation had barely managed to stand firm. They had not fallen 1,000 miles. Chapter 1694. Although lifeless Demon Palace was strong, Desolation wasn't completely defenseless. Especially Hong Jun, Ro, and Hutu. With the help of the Great Path energy, they were comparable to peak Immortal Realm experts. Although they could only show off in Pangu's Chaos World, they were only ordinary peak Immortal Realm experts. But Extermination Demon Venerate was restrained by the origin of the Great Path. Then there were Hong Jun and the other two. Although they couldn't compare to the people in other realms, their spiritual treasures weren't any weaker. The Jade Disc of Good Fortune in Hong Jun's hand, the 3,000 Celestial and Demon painting in Luoho's hand, and the golden plate of Reincarnation in Huda's hand were all grade 3 supreme treasures. Although they weren't at the peak of grade 3, they were already very good. After all, even Extermination Demon Venerate didn't have a comparable spiritual treasure. Actually, this was why a new Chaos World was so attractive. When it was first born, although its power level might not be enough, its foundation and potential were there. Most importantly, it could nurture many top supreme treasures and natural treasures. For example, the Creation Green Lotus, the Heaven Splitting Axe, the Creation Jade Disc, and the Chaos Bead. If Pangu's Chaos World was really exposed, not just the lifeless Demon Palace, but most people in Dao will sect would rush to it. After all, many Divine Emperor Elders might not even have a level 3 supreme treasure. Therefore, when Extermination Demon Venerate and the others discovered Pangu's Chaos World, they immediately set up 2 great formations to conceal it. Then again, because the origin of the Great Path was restraining Extermination Demon Venerate, Hong Jun and the other 2 used their supreme treasures to threaten the rest of lifeless Demon Palace. That was why they were barely able to hold on. After all, if lifeless Demon Palace attacked in one go, although they could eliminate the root of the problem, they could easily kill 1,000 enemies at the cost of 800 of their own. They were here to search for opportunities, not to fight to the death. The people of lifeless Demon Palace were good at escaping if they missed their target. They wouldn't fight to the death. They were used to picking on the weak. This was their rule of survival. As void thieves, if they didn't do this, they would have been destroyed by the big forces long ago. After all, no matter how good they were at hiding, when facing a D-Zune, everything was futile. There was nowhere they could hide. The reason why when Shuyue was being hunted was very simple. Although the lifeless demon palace did not annihilate Desolation and the others in one go, they did not press too hard. Although there was no full-scale war, small-scale battles had never stopped. This was especially true in the Desolation Star region, where the lifeless demon palace might be able to restrain themselves a little. However, in the primal chaos, they were truly unbridled. Their deaths would be in vain. This time, she was wandering in the primal chaos for two reasons. Firstly, she wanted to find a fortuitous encounter and break through her cultivation. Although breaking through to primordial chaos could not change the overall situation, it was always good to have more strength. Secondly, he wanted to see if he could find a chance to leave the Desolation and ask for help from Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei. After all, the extermination demon venerable and lifeless demon palace's advantage was too obvious. Without external support, Desolation would not be able to hold on for long. As for why they did not send more powerful people, it was because it would cause too much of a commotion. These people were closely monitored by the people from the lifeless demon palace. Once they made a move, it would affect the whole situation. As for whether Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei could help them, it was not a problem for them to consider. Now, they were just making every possible effort. Moreover, even if Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei could not help them, as long as they spread the news and attracted other people to confront the lifeless demon palace, instead of being the sole power now, the people in the Desolation would have a chance to breathe. Anyway, no matter what they did, at least the situation would not be worse than it was now. Interesting. After listening to one Shuyue's narration, Fong Qingshan sighed. It had not been a long time since he had left the Desolation. In retrospect, the past was still vivid in his mind, as if it had happened yesterday. However, he did not expect that in such a short period of time, the Desolation would undergo such a huge change. It almost had a change of ownership, and all the people in the Desolation had become slaves. This was probably something that no one had expected. Immediately, a cold smile appeared on Fong Qingshan's face. This was for the lifeless demon palace, as well as for the people from Hongjun. For the former, if Fong Qingshan had not toured the world and not thought of coming back to take a look, they might have really succeeded. If that had happened, the lifeless demon palace might have really developed into a great power, at least not worse than the few big families in the merchant chaotic world. Unfortunately, their virtue did not match their position, and they did not have enough luck. A mere void thief dared to covet a chaotic world, and a world with a top expert like Fong Qingshan. Even if they succeeded in the end, even if they developed to the level of the Dongfang family, what could they do against Fong Qingshan and the others? Even the Eternal Heaven sect had to lower their heads, let alone them. They were really looking for death. New hatred and old hatred could be settled all at once. As for the latter, in order to prevent him and Yang Mei from coming back to fight for power, they had forced them to sever their karma and cut off their own path of retreat. However, they had harmed others and themselves, and had shot themselves in the foot. If Fong Qingshan and Yang Mei had not severed their karma, and if they had not concealed the secrets of heaven, when the Desolation had met with trouble, Fong Qingshan would have probably discovered it immediately. As long as Fong Qingshan returned, everything would be resolved immediately. They would not be struggling at death's door like now, almost turning into ashes. The only thing that comforted Fong Qingshan was that the Azura race, the human race, the Wu people, and everyone related to him were still in good condition. At the very least, it was a blessing in disguise. Fong Qingshan finally heaved a sigh of relief. The situation was not too bad. Moreover, although this calamity was huge, and to the people of the Desolation, it was more important than splitting open the sky, dragons, phoenixes, sorcerers, and demons. However, as the saying went, fortune comes from danger. Calamities were also opportunities. As long as they could survive, it would be beneficial to their future cultivation. If they had cultivated step by step, how could Hong Jun and the others in the original trajectory have the chance to transcend? At least not now. Now, Hong Jun had broken free from the restraints of Hong Jun Tiandao and broken through to the late-stage immortal realm. He was not inferior to Yang Mei at all. Although the Azura Sovereign and the others had not improved as much as Hong Jun and the others, they had also broken through to the peak primordial chaos and even the immortal realm. However, no matter what they had obtained, it was obvious that Fang Qingshan and the others would not be grateful to the people of the lifeless demon palace. And as long as there was a chance, Hong Jun and the others would definitely want to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. However, this luck was only temporary. There was pressure, but too much pressure could directly crush people to death. Based on the current situation, the people of the lifeless demon palace were unstoppable. Sooner or later, they would conquer the entire Pan-Gu chaotic world. Chapter 1695. The extermination demon Venerable used to be an immortal emperor. After he found the Pan-Gu chaos world, he got some kind of opportunity and became a god emperor. He was not an ordinary god emperor either. He was at least a title god emperor. What about the Pan-Gu chaos world? With the arrival of Poison God Marquis and the others, the start of the challenge tournament, Shura Sovereign, Zhenyuan Zi, and the others, the Great Tao had started to recover. It was getting stronger. The arrival of the lifeless demon palace and the extermination demon Venerable had stimulated the Great Tao to recover. Even Hong Jun, Ro, Hutu, and the others had broken through to the late immortal realm. Not to mention the Great Tao itself. Hutu and the others had reached the late immortal realm. With the help of the Great Tao, they could rival the peak immortal realm. The Great Tao could mobilize the power of the origin of the world. It could rival a god emperor. On top of that, the world itself could suppress outsiders. The Great Tao also had a few treasures that were not weaker than the sky-splitting axe. That was why he could fight against the extermination demon Venerable. Unfortunately, the Great Tao had been weak for a long time. Even if its potential burst out, it would only spoil things. The extermination demon Venerable was different. He came from the myriad worlds and had rich fighting experience. He also had all kinds of secret techniques. If the Great Tao didn't have a few treasures, it would have collapsed long ago. Therefore, the entire untainted land was in a precarious situation. As for when it would be completely destroyed, it depended on when the extermination demon Venerable could suppress the Great Tao's will. When he replaced the Great Tao's will, it would be the beginning of the Desolation World's destruction. This time, if Fang Qingshan hadn't coincidentally obtained the first place on the title stele and was lucky enough to travel around the world and find the Pan-Gu Chaos world, Fang Qingshan wouldn't know what had happened here unless the Shura clan was exterminated. Even if he knew, it would be useless. Everything would be a foregone conclusion. Even if he could avenge them, would they be able to come back to life? Of course, Hong Jun and the others had thought of other ways, such as asking for help and exposing the Pan-Gu Chaos world to attract other forces. As long as the lifeless demon palace didn't become the only force, they still had a chance. It was the same as when Bloodmoon's goal this time. In fact, even if he left the Pan-Gu Chaos world and went to the infinite void, it would still be better than being enslaved here. Unfortunately, even if they could think of this, how could Demon Venerable extermination and the others not? Therefore, they set up a protective formation in the primal chaos and a concealment formation outside the primal chaos. This was to prevent outsiders from discovering them, and also to prevent someone from escaping and ruining their grand plan. Moreover, the top experts were being watched. It was difficult for ordinary experts to survive in the primal chaos. Moreover, there were people from the lifeless demon palace stationed at the various checkpoints in the primal chaos. Moreover, there were two great arrays. Therefore, Hong Jun and the others had not achieved their goal. This time, if not for the sudden appearance of Fang Qingshan, when Shuiwa would have wasted all his efforts and even lost his life. Ancestor, how did you come back? Did you alert the people of the lifeless demon palace? Can we go out again? Forefather, May I know your current cultivation level? Have you reached the deity emperor realm? Extermination demon venerable has already broken through to the god emperor realm. Forefather, what do you think we should do now? After telling Fong Qingshan everything that had happened in the desolation, when Shuiyue asked a few questions in succession. First was the question of the way out. She wanted to know how Fong Qingshan had broken through the two great arrays without alerting the people of the lifeless demon palace. Could he still go out now? If not, she was afraid that she would need to think about it further. This would depend on Fong Qingshan's cultivation level. Therefore, at the same time, she asked about Fong Qingshan's cultivation level and told Fong Qingshan about Demon Venerable Extermination's cultivation level. To them, the forefather Fong Qingshan was a high existence. Before leaving the desolation, he could be compared to Hong Jun. Then he went to the immeasurable void, so his cultivation level should have advanced by leaps and bounds. However, Pangu's primal chaos world had encountered a great calamity. Calamity was also an opportunity. Not to mention Hongjuan's group, even Shura's sovereign had reached the early immortal realm. However, he still couldn't be compared to Demon Venerable Extermination. After all, he was a deity emperor who could establish a small force in the immeasurable void. As for the desolation, not to mention a deity emperor, there wasn't even an immortal emperor. Although the myriad worlds were vast, they didn't know much about it. They only knew that the lifeless demon palace had been operating outside for many years and had only reached the deity emperor realm. Although they were confident in Fong Qingshan, they didn't know how strong Fong Qingshan was and whether he could deal with Demon Venerable Extermination. She was afraid that Fong Qingshan didn't know how strong he was and acted rashly, which would harm others and himself. Of course, if Fong Qingshan could come and leave quietly, it would be great. After all, this was a way of retreat, and the Azura clan could sit back and relax. If they could fight, it would be the best. After all, not many people would be willing to leave their homes. Even if they couldn't win, it would be good to retreat and keep their lives. When Shuiyue thought a lot. However, as a junior, she couldn't express her thoughts directly. Therefore, she gave the initiative to Fong Qingshan and asked him what they should do. In fact, she didn't know Fong Qingshan well. If she knew, she wouldn't think so. Moreover, if the people of the lifeless demon palace and demon venerable extermination knew that Fong Qingshan had come back, they would run away immediately. The reason why they set up a formation to conceal the heavenly secrets outside the chaotic world was not only to prevent people from coming in by accident, but also to prevent Fong Qingshan from coming back. After all, although Fong Qingshan had left the Pangu chaotic world not long ago, he had already made a name for himself in the myriad heavens and realms. In the entire boundless void, besides the venerable emperors, Fong Qingshan could be said to be the #1 expert in the world. Not to mention the lifeless demon palace and demon venerable extermination. Even the martial apex sect, Eternal Heaven Gate, First Divine General, and Three Treasures Divine Emperor were nothing. Before Fong Qingshan had entered the tidal tower, he had bowed down and apologized, let alone now. Moreover, even if Fong Qingshan's strength was not taken into account, the Dao sect behind him was enough to make the lifeless demon palace and demon venerable extermination give up any thoughts they had. As for why when Shuiyue and the others didn't know that Fong Qingshan was touring the world and the whole myriad heavens had seen it, they were still worried. It was because the Dao sect was singing Fong Qingshan's title, Nirvana Divine Emperor. Not to mention them, even the people in the Dao sect didn't know this title. As for touring the world, it wasn't that he was looking at the scenery from the bridge, but that the people who were looking at the scenery were looking at him from a bridge. It was just that Fong Qingshan was looking at the world. Unless one was at the same level as Fong Qingshan, or higher than him, or had special means, it was impossible for them to see his true colors. Chapter 1696. They did not know Fong Qingshan's title, nor could they see Fong Qingshan's true face. Although they might be able to sense the connection between Fong Qingshan and themselves, no one dared to believe it. However, no one would dare to believe it. they would only think that it was an illusion. After all, the commotion caused by Feng Qingshan winning the title of God Emperor was too great. Whether it was Hong Jun, the Shura sovereign, or the other people of the Untainted Land, none of them thought of such a person as Feng Qingshan. Didn't he see that when Xu Yue was still probing Feng Qingshan even now? He still didn't trust Feng Qingshan? What should we do? Leaving aside Wen Shuyue's thoughts, Feng Qingshan sneered when he heard her question. Of course we will settle old and new grudges together. Upon hearing this, Wen Shuiyue's face revealed a trace of a complicated expression. She was both happy and worried. She was happy that Feng Qingshan dared to make such a decision after hearing her words. He must have a well-thought-out plan. After all, Feng Qingshan was not an arrogant person. In this way, the predicament of Shura clan could be easily solved by desolation. This was a joyous matter. Only those who had experienced despair would know the value of hope. What worried her was that seeing was believing. After all, she had not seen Feng Qingshan's current strength. Although Feng Qingshan seemed to be very good in the past, he was too young and might not be as good as he used to be. A hero would not boast about his past achievements. The key was to see how he was doing now. She had personally experienced the ferocious power of extermination demon venerable. Not to mention in the Pangu chaotic world, even in the myriad heavens and realms, a divine emperor could be considered an expert. It was because of his existence that the people of Desolation felt despair. Otherwise, even if there were many experts in lifeless demon palace, Desolation might still be able to fight back. Feng Qingshan did not know what Wen Shuiyue was thinking. Even if he knew, he would not care. In any case, everything would be revealed after he killed all the enemies of the lifeless demon palace. Let's go. Feng Qingshan waved his sleeves and rushed towards the Desolation with Wen Shuiyue. He took a step and instantly crossed countless spacetimes. The distance between him and the Desolation was shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. Back in the day, when they left the Desolation, Feng Qingshan and Yang Mei had to expend a great deal of effort to leave the Pangu Chaos world on the Timeless Arkansas. However, Feng Qingshan wasn't using the Timeless Ark right now. Instead, he was walking at a leisurely pace. Even so, he was quickly approaching the starfield. As expected, the present was different from the past. Ha! Kill! Kill, kill, kill. If I kill a few more of them, I'll have enough merit points to exchange for the divine ability I wanted last time. Hee. I just need to kill a few more people, and I will be able to successfully condense the mountain of corpses sea of blood technique. Brother Wang, why don't we compete to see who can kill more? That's great. As Feng Qingshan neared the Desolation Star field, his face suddenly turned ashen and a murderous look flashed in his eyes. From afar, he could hear the sound of horses galloping. Battle cries could be heard everywhere. One side sounded extremely arrogant and evil. They actually killed people for fun. They wanted to see who could kill more and faster. Although they didn't have many people, their combat power was shocking. They had the upper hand. The other side seemed very tragic. Although they had many people, their cultivation was much lower. Although they were advancing wave after wave, and although they didn't retreat, they were always at a disadvantage. Deaths were happening all the time, and it wasn't just one or two people dying, but a large number of them dying. Clearly, the former side was from the lifeless demon palace, and the latter was from the Desolation Star field. Although the lifeless demon palace didn't want to provoke the Desolation Star field into a life-and-death struggle, they still wanted to wait for the extermination demon venerable to replace the great path and then sweep the fallen leaves in the autumn wind. However, it didn't mean that they didn't care about the Desolation Star field. After all, if they didn't care about the Desolation Star field, they would have a chance to breathe. Who knew if they would use this pressure and calamity to break the cocoon and turn the situation around? They knew from the Poison God Marquis that the Desolation Star field didn't have any Immortal Realm experts in the beginning. But now, let alone the Immortal Realm experts, they even had peak of Immortal Realm experts. If the extermination demon venerable hadn't broken through to the God Emperor realm, it would have been hard to say who would have won. Moreover, although they couldn't launch an all-out attack, they could still cause some small skirmishes. This would not only affect the morale of the Desolation Star field, but also weaken their power. Like boiling a frog in warm water, this would also weaken the Great Path's power. After all, when the Desolation Star field's power was weakened, the Great Path power would also be weakened. This would help the extermination demon Venerable suppress the Great Path faster, although the effect wouldn't be obvious. But who knew if this would be the straw that broke the camel's back? Did Hong Jun and the others not know about this? They knew, but they couldn't do anything about it. After all, this was an overt plot. Although it was like boiling a frog in warm water, at least they could still hold on for now. Once they launched an all-out attack, even if they could cause a huge loss to the lifeless demon palace, it would be a disaster for them. Therefore, until the last moment, they always held on to hope. What if the Great Path could hold on for a longer time? What if Hong Jun and the others broke through? What if Pangu's primal chaos world was exposed and attracted the attention of others? What if, although the chances were slim, there was still a glimmer of hope, wasn't there? In the midst of despair, any glimmer of hope would be firmly grasped as a life-saving straw. Therefore, they needed time. If they had enough time, as long as one of them broke through to the godly Emperor realm, and with the treasures they possessed, the demon extermination venerate and the lifeless demon palace would not be a problem. Therefore, when faced with the small-scale battlefield opened up by the lifeless demon palace, the upper echelons of the Desolation Alliance, such as Hong Jun, Hutu, Ro, the demon extermination venerate, and the other immortals and even high-level primordial chaos sages, refrained from participating. They were either searching for opportunities or cultivating in seclusion. However, the middle and low-level primordial chaos sages, and even those below primordial chaos sages, had opened up a battlefield in the Desolation Star field. From time to time, they would fight here. As a result, although this place had not been formed for a long time, due to the many battles and deaths, it emitted a terrifying aura. It was filled with killing, chaos, death, despair, and all sorts of other terrifying and complicated auras. There was blood and fire everywhere. It was even more shocking than the gloomy corpse mountains that Feng Qingshan had seen before. After all, countless years had passed there, but it was happening here. Shocking killing intent spread out in all directions, vaguely turning into a red mist that filled the air and blotted out the sun. The great sorcerer and demon tribulations paled in comparison. Chapter 1697. The battlefield was extremely tragic. After all, the weakest that could come here was a perfected golden immortal. Perfected golden immortals, on the other hand, transcended all time and space. But here, they were nothing but cannon fodder. If they did not join forces to set up a formation, just the shockwaves alone would probably turn them into ashes. Even so, no one retreated. Everyone fought with no regard for their own safety. Of course, it was not that they were not afraid of death. Rather, they had no way out. Currently, in Pangu's chaotic world, apart from the many worlds created after the original Desolation people were chased out of Desolation, almost all the living beings in the other worlds have been enslaved. It was truly a fate worse than death. Life was precious, but the Tao was even more valuable. For the sake of freedom, both could be abandoned. Therefore, it was not that they did not want to live, but that they would still be killed if they stuck their heads out. If they did not fight, they would have to wait for the sky to fall and the tall ones to hold it up. In the end, they would only be waiting for death and becoming slaves. Death was not scary. What was scary was not even being able to die. Therefore, as long as they had the ability, no one would refuse to go to the battlefield or be afraid. They might die on the battlefield, but they could also carve out a path of blood for a chance of survival. If they hid in the back and struggled at death's door, they would probably die before the lifeless demon palace arrived. The Desolation saints would take their lives. Kill all these demon bastards. Killing one is breaking even. Killing two is even a bonus. I will not regret entering Desolation in this life, and I will still be Desolation people in my next life. Hee hee. If you want to kill us to earn your rewards, Let's see if I'm the one who fights to the death, or if you guys are better. On the battlefield, forces overflowed and rumbled incessantly, causing the void to tremble. If this was not a battlefield created in chaos, but in desolation, heaven and earth would have long been destroyed. After all, during the war between Taoists and demons, there were no chaotic origin saints, yet heaven and earth had almost collapsed. Now, the weakest among them were Grand Luo, and origin immortals were not uncommon either. As the two sides clashed, they really wanted nothing more than to use everything they had and unleash whatever power they could. Desolation's side even self-destructed at the very last moment. Looking at the people from the lifeless demon palace, they were surrounded by a scarlet-red energy that was formed from karma. If it was in the past, they would have been punished by the heavens. Unfortunately now, not to mention Hongjun Tiandao, even the great Tao could not take care of itself. Didn't he see that so many people from the Desolation sect had perished? There is no lack of saints or primordial chaos immortals among them. Logically speaking, there should have been phenomena like the heavens mourning and the earth crying, a rain of blood falling, and a mourning bell tolling. But now there was none of that. It was as if the death of these people was just a normal occurrence. These people from the lifeless demon palace had piercingly cold bodies that were as cold as hell. They were extremely terrifying, and each of them had a ferocious expression on their faces. They didn't hesitate to attack and didn't show any mercy. To them, the people from the Desolation sect were lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They killed for fun, for merit, and for cultivation. They had completely fallen into the demonic path, even though they themselves were demonic. But clearly, the evil intentions in their hearts were magnified to the maximum here. After all, in the outside world, in the boundless void, the lifeless demon palace was just a small faction. They had to behave with their tails between their legs. If they were careless and offended a major faction, any god emperor would be enough to topple them. But here they were the strongest. Naturally, they were unscrupulous. It could be seen that the blood, corpses, primordial spirits, and souls of those they killed were all absorbed by various evil treasures, such as the bloodthirsty pearl, the blood pool, the Een soul banner, and so on. Killing people to refine treasures, squeezing out every last bit of value. This was even more ruthless than Ro. Although they were strong, the people from the Desolation sect were not completely defenseless. Firstly, they had the numbers. Although the quality was not high, they had the numbers. Quantity could also cause a qualitative change. Therefore, they used the human wave tactic. Of course, they did not charge forward as a swarm of bees. That would be suicidal. Instead, they used formations. Formations were one of the most powerful means to defeat the strong. Back then, during the Great War of Sorcerers and Demons, the 12 ancestral sorcerers were merely demi-saints. But when Emperor Jun, Tai, and Fushi joined forces with 365 Golden Immortals and Golden Immortals, the Heavenly Fiends array and the Heavenly Stars array they laid out could rival a saint. This was evident. Not to mention now, the Zodion Star Formation, the Great Divine Fiends Formation, the Immortal Slaying Sword Formation, the Yellow River of Nine Bends, the 3,000 Celestial Demons Formation, the Blood Sea Formation, the 10 Ultimate Formation, the Een and Yang Dust Sword Formation, the Bodhi Golden Lotus Formation. Almost all of the famous formations in the Desolation sect could be seen here. Countless Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals from various sects formed a battle formation. They formed a battle formation and transformed into numerous divine beasts and gods, slaughtering the lifeless demon palace and their subordinates in a frenzy. Yes, the Desolation sect's enemies were not only the lifeless demon palace's people, but also many traitors. Not everyone could hold their head high in the face of death, and not everyone could remain unyielding. Unfortunately, although they had surrendered, they were not worthy of anyone's attention. Therefore, they were sent to the battlefield by the lifeless demon palace, not only to discuss the Desolation sect, but also to make use of trash to increase their own strength and deplete the Desolation sect's strength. For a moment, There was Pangu wielding the heaven-splitting axe, shattering the chaos, the four immortal slaying swords hanging high in the sky, sword chi sweeping through the sky. Throughout the ages, there was a sky full of stars, a Bodhi golden lotus, the yellow river of nine bends, the yin and yang dust, sword light flickered, and saber shadows appeared. Many immortals and all kinds of battle formations and formations charged in a battlefield. When enemies met on a narrow path, only the brave would win, not to mention the weak. On the battlefield, the more one was afraid of death, the faster one would die. Therefore, when these people fought, they were willing to risk their lives. Even on the brink of death, they would drag others down with them. There were many self-destructing people, and those who didn't know better would think that they were setting off firecrackers. Actually, to the Desolation sect, even if they couldn't drag others down with them, they would at least knock out one of their teeth. Unfortunately, even so, they couldn't change the overall situation. Everyone knew this, but just like how Hong Jun and the others knew that this battle was an overt plot, they had no other choice. The initiative was in the other party's hands. The only thing they could do was fight for a chance of survival. The lifeless demon palace wanted to weaken their fighting strength. If they had the strength to survive, they would also have to cut off the lifeless demon palace's strength to survive. Furthermore, if one could risk one's life on the battlefield and fight to the death, that was also the only way to break through quickly. Of course, this method was also the most dangerous. If they weren't careful, they would lose their lives before they could break through. Fang Qingshan stood in the sky above the battlefield, watching everything quietly. He felt depressed, but at the same time, he was happy for them. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.